What's going on, everybody? It's your man, Louie T, here with another brand new installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Hope this day is treating you well, or this evening is treating you well. Got a lot to discuss. Week 2 of the National Football League is in the books. Haven't had a chance to touch on that yet. This has been a hectic week on my end, but we're going to knock that down today. We will talk about a number of topics. Bryce Young has been benched. Hey, these coaches ain't playing with these young quarterbacks neither, man. Jets or Titans head coach Brian Callahan goes postal on Will Levis, right? Has every right to. If you haven't seen the shit that Will Levis is doing, then you wouldn't really understand. But if you've seen it, then you get it. And so we'll talk about all of those things. We'll talk about those rookie quarterbacks. We'll talk about these outcomes in week 2 and so much more here on the 449th installment of the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 449th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Lots to get to tonight. We're going to talk about the week 2 in the National Football League and some of these outcomes, all of these outcomes rather, and kind of where we are with the season thus far after 2 weeks. Thank you. And so we'll get into that. Before we do that, though, I always like to start with the rookies, kind of talk about their progress. I told you that I was going to follow these rookies very, very closely, analyze what they've done this season or what they're doing, kind of chronicle their journey throughout this season, because it's not often that we have 6 quarterbacks go in the first round of the NFL draft. As a matter of fact, that was the first time we've ever had 6 quarterbacks go in the first round. And in the first 12 picks, I may add. Now, only 3 of them are starting now, but I think at some point, even though they're playing, much better than anybody thought they would to this point, maybe except for them in that locker room, the Patriots at some point are going to start Drake May, you would think. But it's an interesting group. Everyone's situation is different. And I think kind of looking at their situation kind of helps lend a bit more. I think it lends a bit more perspective on the Bryce Young situation that we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the podcast. So with that said, let's jump into the Gem Droppin Session, shall we? I think we shall. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind. Let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, as we did in week 1, we talked about the 3 rookie quarterbacks that are starting this season. And those 3 rookies are the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, the number 2 overall pick, Jaden Daniels, and the number 12 overall selection, Bo Nix. Now, we saw Caleb Williams on the national stage in week number 2 versus the Houston Texans on the road, and boy, did he get beat up or what. Bears are now 1-1, so Caleb has tasted victory, but he has not really tasted success, if that makes sense thus far. His first start against the Titans was a forgettable one. He did not play well, did not throw for 100 yards in that game. He did have a touchdown pass that should have been caught, and he would have had his first touchdown toss of his career. None of the rookie quarterbacks to this point through 2 weeks have a touchdown pass but he would have had one last week had Keenan Allen caught the football. That said, it was a very, very forgettable debut. A lot of missed throws, tons of pressure, sub 50% completion percentage, under 100 yards passing, but they won the game. And that he will never forget, right? However, in week 2, no such luck. Defense didn't bail them out, even though they played their asses off. 19-13 loss for the Bears. But they didn't score a touchdown like they did the previous week. Special teams didn't bail them out. They didn't score a touchdown like they had done the previous week. And so the offense continues to struggle in Chicago, but it's not all in the lap of Caleb Williams. This group offensively has some issues. We thought that this offensive line was going to be, ready to go. They had been building this offensive line for, a couple of years now, maybe even 3 years now. And so you felt like, okay, they're ready to protect a rookie quarterback. And they've surrounded him with all these pieces and they're ready to go. And then you watch the game and they could not protect Caleb Williams. And at times he could not protect himself. Now, at some point, he's going to have to understand where the pressure is coming from and whether he needs to get out of there himself or he needs to get rid of the football is something he'll have to decide. But he can't be oblivious to the pressure. And sometimes it's supposed to be picked up. We're watching certain plays and we're watching guys just flat out whiff and miss in protection, and he's getting clobbered because of it. He was hit 11 times on Sunday night versus the Texans, sacked 7 times in that ball game. It was a struggle for Caleb Williams. He threw his first 2 interceptions in that game, had no interceptions in his week 1 win over the Titans. So he got a taste of what the interception life is like. And he looked miserable at game's end. Looked like a guy that was somewhat beaten up at the end of that game. Really didn't look like he was in the mood to talk. CJ Stroud tried to give him words of advice. Didn't look like he was really too pressed to hear those words at that time. He's already told us that he's a sore loser. I don't have any issues with guys being sore losers. I'm a sore loser, right? Doesn't make it right. But you do have to face the music, right? That's one of the things that he did not do well at USC when they lost to UCLA. He did not meet with the media after the game, things of that nature. He's going to have to grow up in those regards. Hopefully that happens here at the next level. But it was a rough go of it in his first loss of his NFL career on Sunday night. And he's going to need more help from the staff in terms of the plays they call, from guys around him making plays. He's going to have to be better himself. We saw frustration for the first time on the faces of and reactions and body language of some of his teammates, most notably DJ Moore, after a missed pass late in that ball game. So remember, DJ Moore was a Justin Fields guy. Meanwhile, Justin Fields 2-0. I'm not saying that Justin Fields is out here changing lives in Pittsburgh, but I will tell you, Justin Fields is playing very well, and he's playing within the scheme, and he's not putting them in harm's way. And when things break down, when you have a quarterback with wheels, it changes everything, which is why if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this is another topic for a little bit later on in the show, and Ben Roethlisberger agrees with me, I wouldn't go to Russell Wilson. I would just keep riding the Justin Fields train as long as it stays on the track. But you can tell that some guys are like, look, man, we thought this year was going to be different. And look, it's just 2 games, but the offense has been disgusting in Chicago the first 2 weeks. And for a guy like DJ Moore, who just signed a brand new contract, coming off of a career year, this isn't what he signed up for, right? This is not what he signed up for. So he's a little frustrated, you can tell. And it's not just on Caleb Williams. That offensive line has to be better. The play calling needs to be better. Guys have to make plays for him when the opportunities present themselves. But things have to change, and Caleb Williams is going to have to be better too. When opportunities present itself for him to make big plays, he's going to have to make them. So we'll see what happens. But rough go of it for the first 2 weeks for Caleb Williams. So much so that the odds for Offensive Rookie of the Year have shifted from Caleb Williams being the odds-on favorite before the season started and even after week 1, even though the gap had closed, Caleb Williams was still the odds-on favorite. He is now in third place behind the next guy we're going to talk about, Jayden Daniels. And Arizona Cardinals wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. after his big explosive day in week 2 versus the Los Angeles Rams. So those two are now tied, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jayden Daniels atop the odds leaderboard in terms of Offensive Rookie of the Year. And Caleb now finds himself in third. Speaking of Jayden Daniels, still has not tossed a touchdown pass, but that's coming. But what continues to be impressive is the command of the offense, the poise that he shows in the pocket, his ability to extend plays when things aren't there, when things break down, his legs have become a real weapon. And also his ability to just protect the football. Of the 3 rookies that we're talking about here, Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, and of course, Bo Nix, he is the only one yet to turn the football over. No interceptions thrown, no fumbles lost. He has fumbled twice, but both of those were recovered by the Commanders. So he continues to take care of the football. The completion percentage is through the roof right now. He's completing 75% of his passes through 2 games. And while many of them are horizontal passes at the line of scrimmage or, just slightly past the line of scrimmage, there are passes down the field as well mixed into these throws. And when big throws are required, he's made those throws to start this season off. He has a game-winning drive under his belt as well, leading the Commanders to their first win of the season in week number 2, when he went 23 of 29 for 226 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, 10 carries, 44 yards. So he continues to play well. And the offense did not punt on Sunday. 7 drives for the Commanders offense, 7 field goals. Now, they did not have the red zone efficiency that you're looking for, but there were a lot of reasons as to why that happened. At the end of the day, he right now is head and shoulders above the other 2 rookie starters right now. And it's his play that has given the Commanders a bit of confidence right now as to what this season could potentially be. Now, at the end of the day, it's 2 games. We'll see how he continues to develop and how things continue to go and how he continues to grow. But right now, by far and away, he's been the most dynamic rookie quarterback of this group. And it's really not been close. It's really not been close. We'll see what he does now. Tough assignment, Monday Night Football, on the road, 0-2 Bengals, have to have it. National spotlight. Caleb didn't fare so well in his first national game on the big stage with the bright lights. We'll see how Jayden Daniels fares in his first opportunity to be under the bright lights and big stage of primetime football. You get to Bo Nix, and boy, of the 3 quarterbacks, he is struggling the most. So not a surprise that he's struggling, but I am surprised at the depth of which he is struggling. Bo Nix, as I mentioned, along with the other 2 quarterbacks, do not have any passing touchdowns, but Bo Nix has 4 interceptions thrown, 2 in each of the first 2 games. Bo Nix is struggling to throw the football down the field. I think Bo Nix has all 4 of his interceptions are on passes 10 yards or further down the field. His completion percentage on passes 10 yards or further down the field is like 20%, right? And he has like 30 yards passing down like he literally is nickel and diming his way down the field. When that is happening, a lot of times their drives are ending in punts. They're not moving the football effectively or efficiently. Sean Payton is struggling to get them into any kind of offensive rhythm. They're not getting the football to Cortland Sutton. And so it's been a struggle. Look, it's a tough environment in Seattle in week 1. And I thought he showed poise in that environment in the face of adversity. Things did not go well, but yet he still had them within a score late in the game and a chance with an onside kick. The same thing kind of presented itself in this game. They were down 13-0 at one point. They were able to close the gap to 13-6, but they never felt like they were in a realistic position to win. But there were opportunities for them to close the gap and maybe put themselves in a position. And Bo Nix threw a bad interception in the end zone to kill one scoring possession. You see the issues that he has right now with just feeling comfortable. Now, that Steelers defense is pretty damn good, but it doesn't feel like they're in any kind of offensive rhythm in Denver right now. And it feels like Sean Payton's kind of struggling to call plays as well. Like there's no real fluidity, no synchronicity in what's going on right now in Denver. To me, offensively, the defense is giving them a shot in both of the first 2 games. And unfortunately for them, the offense just hasn't gotten it done. And some of that is on Bo Nix. Obviously, him being a rookie quarterback, you're going to go through the growing pains that come with a young quarterback. But you got to help these young quarterbacks out. Like, so much goes into having a young quarterback and how you nurture that quarterback and how you bring them along. And, I've heard some people talking about how many screens and underneath throws that you're seeing from Jaden Daniels. And I'm like, that's what I want my young quarterback doing. I want him to be comfortable. As the season grows and as I put more on his plate, we'll push the football down the field. But the first 2 weeks, first 3 weeks, first 4 weeks, first month of the season, I want him as comfortable as I can get him. I want him instilled with as much confidence as I can instill him with. And so the more easy throws, or as we like to say when using a basketball analogy, the more shots you see go through the basket, or in the case of a quarterback, the more completions you see happen, the more confidence you get, the more your confidence grows. And then you become that guy that was a Heisman Trophy candidate in college, or was on one of the best teams and was one of the best players that allowed you to be a first-round pick. Then that confidence starts to grow. As you get to the NFL, you may come in with that confidence, but it's going to be knocked down a peg or two very quickly when you realize this is not where I just came from. I'm no longer big man on campus. And sometimes you start to doubt yourself if things don't go well early. And the job of the staff, the job of the organization, and the people around you, the players, everyone, is to put you in a position where you're able to gain confidence. I don't feel like that's happening right now in Denver. It's almost like Sean Payton's thrown this young man into the deep end. And it's not like they're asking this kid to throw it, 50 times a game like the Commanders did last year with Sam Howell. But he threw it 42 times in week 1, did Bo Nix. And he threw it quite a bit in week 2 against the Steelers as well. So it's not like, they're asking, like Jaden Daniels threw the ball 24 times in week 1, and he threw it 29 times in week 2. That's a grand total of 53 passes. Bo Nix threw the ball 42 times in week 1. 42 times in week 1. So I don't think that Sean Payton's doing him any favors either. But Sean Payton's offense too, it does predicate on a lot of short passes, getting the ball out of your hands, things of that nature, which is what Bo Nix excels at, which is why I thought he would be a great fit. But they're nickel and diming. They're having a lot of penalties. They had, I think they had 10 penalties in the game on Sunday versus the Steelers. They had a bunch of penalties in the game against the Seahawks. And so when you put yourself behind the sticks and put yourself in these long down and distances, and now you need to drive the ball down the field, it's a lot tougher to run that offense where you're not having a ton of success in the run game either. So you're not taking a lot of pressure off of the young quarterback. Just a lot of things haven't gone well for Bo Nix. Same thing could be said for Caleb Williams. That run game in Chicago has not been dynamic at all. And so it doesn't help. I think they could use Bo Nix's legs a little bit more. I don't think they're utilizing that part of his game enough to put pressure on the defense to give them something else to think about. Clearly, he can use his legs. So I think that's something else they might want to try to tap into until he starts to figure it out a little bit more as a passer. But it's not a clean situation right now for him in Denver. 4 interceptions, no touchdown passes. The Broncos are 0-2, and they scored a whole 6 points in their defeat on Sunday to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 13-6. So we're going to continue to watch these rookies, see how they develop as the season progresses. I assume that all three of these guys are going to continue to grow and get better as the season progresses. But it's been a rough start for both the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, who is no longer the odds-on favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And has been a bit of a struggle for the 12th pick overall by the Denver Broncos quarterback Bo Nix. Jaden Daniels, on the other hand, he is thriving right now, playing well, gaining confidence, and we'll see what happens as he goes on the road for one of his biggest tests to date on Monday Night Football against the winless now Cincinnati Bengals, who have to have it. And they're playing really solid defense, are the Bengals. So we'll see what happens there. Let's get to our next segment. And of course, we're going slate skating. Put your skates on. We're going to go around the National Football League in week number 2, talk about all of these outcomes, how they came to be, and get you caught up to speed on what you can expect for week number 3. So I've got my rollerblades on. I'll give you a second to get your skates on, rollerblades, whatever you're going to put on, and we're going to hit the pavement, and we're going to go. So we'll go ahead and get that Giants-Commanders game out of the way real quick. 21-18 victory for the Commanders. Commanders win with 7 field goals made in the game by their new kicker, Austin Seibert, including the game winner as time expired to give the Commanders the 21-18 victory. It was not without strife and struggle as the Giants were pesky in this game. It was a weird game for the Giants. So apparently the Giants came into the game knowing that their kicker, Graham Gano, had an ailing hamstring. He had been dealing with some issues there, and he was not 100%, but they thought he could get through the game without injury. And he might have been able to do that had he not been forced to try to chase down an opening kickoff for a touchdown, which was nullified by a penalty. But in full stride, as he was trying to track down Austin Eckler from behind, his hamstring gave out. Maybe if that doesn't happen and he doesn't have to chase anybody and no big kickoff returns happen throughout the game, he's able to get through the game, kicking field goals, extra points, so forth and so forth. But it did happen on the very first play of the game. He was out. And so the Giants were without a field goal kicker. And the New York media, you kind of sunk their teeth into Brian Daboll, the head coach, because of the previous injury going into the game for Graham Gano and him needing to kind of adjust accordingly, knowing that there was a chance that Graham Gano could not finish this game. That said, the Giants were just fine without him, right? There's been this conversation amongst Giants fans. If we had our kicker, we would have won the game. I don't know. There weren't many possessions that the Giants didn't score, right? Where if they had a kicker, they would have attempted a field goal, right? There weren't many of those. As a matter of fact, I don't think there were any except for the final possession of the game. Now, maybe they kick a field goal on that last possession, and if they had their field goal kicker, they make an extra point on all of their touchdowns, and that would have given them 24 points. Washington would have still been in a position to win on the final drive of the game. Now, would they have scored a touchdown after going 0 of 6 up until that point, or 0 of 5 up until that point in the game in the red zone? Who knows, right? But they still would have had a shot, right? So I don't know if they would have won the game regardless, but it damn sure didn't help that Graham Gano was injured. Daniel Jones played just fine, 16 of 28 in the game, 170 yards or so passing, 2 touchdown passes, didn't do anything crazy, used his legs, and he put the Giants in a position to win. And if Malik Neighbors, who had a spectacular week 2 performance, a career high 100 and some odd yards, let's see the exact number of yards he had in this game. He had 18 targets, 10 catches in this game, did Malik Neighbors. But the 11th catch would have been huge. It would have put the Giants in a position to potentially win this game. 127 yards and a touchdown for Malik Neighbors in this game. But unfortunately, he could not corral that 11th catch and that 18th target, which was a vital one on a 4th down that would have extended the drive and put the Giants in the driver's seat to probably win this game, or at least give them a great shot to win the game. But he did not catch it, and that set the stage for Jaden Daniels to go down the field and put the Commanders in a position to win the game with a walk-off field goal. Brian Robinson Jr. had a career-high 133 yards on 17 carries. He had his 2 biggest runs of his career, 32 and 40 in this game. Churned out yards throughout. Austin Eckler was really good in the pass game as well on the ground. And so the Commanders did what it took. It wasn't pretty. They've got a lot of work to do, especially on the defensive side of the football. Devin Singletary almost went for 100 yards on just 16 carries in this game. He had 95 yards. So the run defense was not good. The pass defense was no better, but they somehow found a way to escape with the win. They did force their first turnover of the season, and that did go a long way in helping determine the outcome. Commanders get it done, 21-18. They're now 1-1 on the season. Giants dropped to 0-2 on the season, and a lot of questions for the Giants, and not a ton of answers at this current juncture. We go on to our next contest from Sunday's action. And, this was one of the most surprising outcomes in week number 2. The Las Vegas Raiders go into Baltimore and stun the Ravens. They were down 10 points in the 4th quarter, 23-13. The Raiders score 13 unanswered 4th quarter points and walk out of M&T Bank a 26-23 victor to drop the Ravens to 0-2 on the season. What a surprise that the Ravens find themselves in an 0-2 hole to start the season off. Meanwhile, John's brother Jim comes into the league and immediately goes 2-0. So how did this come to be? You got to give credit first and foremost to Gardner Minshew. He's just one of these. My buddy's a Raiders fan, and we were talking, and he wanted no parts of winning. Right? He's one of those guys that's like, look, it's cool to have, a fun season, win, 8-9 games, possibly make the playoffs, yada, yada, yada. But I don't want to be stuck in neutral. That all that does is delay the inevitable. We need a quarterback. So he wants to bottom out. And these types of wins, and I told him, I said, with AP as your head coach, you're not going to bottom out, bro. You stand zero chance of bottoming out. He inspires people too much. When you have a coach like Antonio Pierce, who is able to motivate, instill confidence in people where confidence wasn't where it once was or wasn't, he is a guy that players want to run through a brick wall for. Max Crosby pretty much said, if you don't bring him back as the full-time head coach, I'm going to explore trade options. Devontae Adams wanted out, and then he didn't. The only thing that I can tell you as to why he didn't is Antonio Pierce. So when you look at this team and them not quitting in this game, it all starts with Antonio Pierce. And Gardner Minshew is the perfect quarterback for him, because Gardner Minshew is a guy that's not going to quit. It's not going to be pretty. The interception he threw in this game, you go, what was that? That's Gardner Minshew, but he bounced back from it. And he was gutsy out there. And Devontae Adams dropped a would-be go-ahead touchdown. He went right back to him and ended up hitting him on a touchdown. Or I think at that point, that would have tied the game. He went right back to him and tied the game up, right? A couple plays later. And so Minshew is one of those unflappable quarterbacks that you can win football games with. And Gardner Minshew in this game, 30 of 38 for 276, 1 touchdown. That was to Devontae Adams, and 1 interception. There's really no run game which to speak of in Vegas right now. 17 carries, 27 yards. So essentially, the onus of the offense is all on the shoulders of Gardner Minshew, and he took care of that in this game. Devontae Adams, 9 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown. on 12 targets. I don't think he looked this good at any point last year with Jimmy Garoppolo and company at quarterback last year. But then you turn around and you spin it. Brock Bowers, my God, he was fantastic in this game. The Ravens had no answers for Brock Bowers. Zero. I mean, they could not cover this young man, and it looked like he was back at Georgia, carving up SEC defenses. He was so good. 9 catches, 98 yards for Brock Bowers in this game. And he's going to be a problem. Straight up and down, no two ways about it. He's going to be a problem. And he was a big one in this game. But the real problem in this game was Max Crosby. My God, he wrecked this game. When I tell you Max Crosby wrecked this game, let me give you some numbers. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Robert Spillane, free agent acquisition for the Raiders a couple of years ago, who I wanted desperately in Washington. This dude came from Pittsburgh out of nowhere and was a beast. And I said, yo, if you can give me a guy like Robert Spillane, sign me up. Spillane had an interception in this game. He had a sack in this game. He was all over the field. Man, I love me some Robert Spillane. He led the Raiders in tackles in this game. And this dude is a beast. Anyway, Max Crosby. Let me give you some numbers on Max Crosby from this game. 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, a pass defended, and 2 quarterback hits for Max Crosby in this game. When I tell you Mad Max was on the prowl, Mad Max was destroying the game. They could not block him from quarter 1 to quarter 4. Max Crosby dominated the Baltimore Ravens. And I'll never understand how you allow a guy like Max Crosby to be singled up on the outside against some journeyman right tackle and expect positive results. And it didn't matter where he was on the field. They kicked him inside. They moved him around. He ran twists and stunts, and he got one-on-one. And whatever he was doing, he won. It felt like every single snap he won, right? This guy is an animal. And so you couple that with what Devontae and Brock Bowers were doing on offense, and that defense got some very timely stops. But I'd be remiss if I don't talk about the Ravens and their part in this. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he said, I think the Ravens are going through an identity crisis. And at that moment, I thought about it because what did we say after week 1, right? Not enough opportunities for Derrick Henry. You went and got him to be able to run the football, play that smash mouth style we have become accustomed to seeing when they had Gus Edwards and all of these other backs, J.K. Dobbins and all these guys. Those two are now in Los Angeles with the Chargers, doing that same kind of smash mouth thing. But it kind of feels like they're going through a bit of an identity crisis. Lamar, after the 16 carry performance in week 1, wants to show people, hey, I can throw the football. He only had 5 carries in this game. And I thought there were a lot more opportunities for him to pull it down and run. But it looked like he was trying to make a point of, I'm going to stay in the pocket and show you that I can throw it. And they needed Lamar to just be Lamar. Like, don't try to prove anything to anybody. And then Derrick Henry, 18 carries, 84 yards. It sounds good, but I kind of felt like when they went and got him, like this was going to be 21 to 24 carries a game, 100 and some odd yards, like kind of bludgeon you to death. They're up 10 in the fourth quarter. That's when it's supposed to be Derrick Henry time, right? That's when he's supposed to take over the game. Up 10, got an opponent down. This is when you put your foot on their neck with Derrick Henry to be the closer, right? That's what they brought him there to do. And it felt like for 3 quarters almost, 2.5 quarters, because it was late stages of the third when Derrick Henry started to get busy. It felt like they forgot about him again. And then he kind of got active in that third quarter, late in the third quarter. That touchdown drive to extend it to a 23-13 lead was all Derrick Henry. It was all Derrick Henry, really. And it took a while for him to get active. And they're still trying to figure some things out in Baltimore. I'll tell you that much. Defensively, though, they've got issues. And they're feeling the impact of not having Mike McDonald there. And also Anthony Weaver, who I think they would have promoted to defensive coordinator, going to the Dolphins. they're feeling the weight of that. Losing Jadeveon Clowney, even though Adafi Owe was spectacular in this game. I think he had 2 or 3 sacks in this game. Doesn't matter. They're still struggling on the defensive side of the football. Like I said, they couldn't cover Brock Bowers. They couldn't cover Devontae Adams. Some of those were some great throws, right? Like, golly, it's great coverage and it's just a better throw and catch. But still, you gave up over 200 yards to those 2 guys in particular there. And while you shut the run down, you should have been able to be more aggressive against the pass, and you weren't. So they got issues defensively. They're trying to figure it out offensively, and they got stunned in this game. They didn't see it coming. Nobody saw it coming, really. And yikes. How about the Vegas Raiders on the road at M&T Bank, down 13 or down 10 in the fourth quarter, scored 13 unanswered points to rally back and essentially kick a walk-off field goal to beat the Baltimore Ravens 20. It wasn't a walk-off. It was probably like 20 seconds left or something like that. But to beat the Ravens 26-23 when you were down 10 in the fourth quarter, that's saying a lot. I'd love to see how many times the Ravens were up 10 in the fourth quarter and lost a ball game. I'd love to know at home, right? Big win for the Raiders, and all of a sudden the Ravens are desperate. 0-2. Steelers are 2-0. They're 0-2 with a trip to Dallas next week. Big win for the Raiders, and they go home and they get the Carolina Panthers next week. So you're feeling good if you're the Raiders, coming off of 2 road games and a big win at Baltimore. Browns, Jags. This was a sleepy game. It was kind of dreary weather in Jacksonville. The Jags are in trouble. They're 0-2 after the 18-13 defeat at the hands of the Browns. They don't look right. The offense doesn't look right. I will tell you, their rookie, Brian Thomas Jr., is fan-effing-tastic. Another big catch for him. Had a big catch over Jalen Ramsey for a touchdown in week 1. Had a big catch. This one was probably every bit of 70 some odd yards, probably maybe even 80 yards, down to the 2-yard line or so. Just missed the touchdown in this particular game, and it was against a good corner too. I want to say it was against Denzel Ward. It might not have been against Ward, but it was against a good corner. And it was against the safety. They went cover 2, and he beat the safety, and he's a beast. But they just, for whatever reason, they're not in sync in Jacksonville. The offense stalls out. They're not making plays when plays need to be made offensively. It doesn't help when your tight end Evan Ingram, who's a big part of their offense, is out. But I thought Cole Strange, the second-year tight end out of Penn State, filled in admirably, played really well in this game. There's no excuses. They're just not playing well right now. And I can't quite put my finger on it. Even if they had won last week, and if Travis Etienne doesn't fumble at the 1, they do win last week against Miami. It still wasn't an impressive performance. It would have just been one of those, hey, Miami is slipping and tripping, and you caught them, and you got it done. But it wouldn't have been like, oh, man, that was an impressive win. But you really don't care what they look like in this league. Just get them when the opportunities present themselves. And they had a chance last week. They blew it. They had a chance this week. They blew it. They're now 0-2. And Trevor Lawrence, he's not playing well to me right now. I've seen him play much better. There was an excuse built in last year. Oh, he's injured. He's banged up. 14 of 30. So sub 50% completion percentage. Now, again, wasn't the best of days weather-wise, and that's a really good Browns defense. Forget about what you think about the Browns offense. That's a good Browns defense, right? For 220 yards. So that's a good average in terms of per completion, but the completion percentage is in the toilet. The run game was solid in this game, but a huge chunk of it came from Trevor Lawrence's legs. He had a big 33-yard run, but right now they're really hurting at receiver too. They're not getting anything out of Christian Kirk. He had 1 catch for -1 yard. That's why I said this offense just feels disjointed right now. When they're at their best, Christian Kirk is a problem. They added Gabe Davis. They added the rookie Brian Thomas Jr. They should be better on offense. And right now they don't feel that way. They're just kind of going through the motions, if that makes sense. And the defense is giving them chances. The defense was ironclad against Miami last week and should have won. And the defense only gave up 16 points. And the Browns scored 18 in this game. And 2 of them came off of a safety late in the game, right? To put it away, essentially. So the Browns, on the other hand, you know what? I'll say this. Deshaun Watson didn't look half bad in this game, okay? It's still not what you paid $63 million a year for, $230 million fully guaranteed. It's still not that. But it's a lot better than the shit that I saw last week against the damn Cowboys. That's for sure. 22 of 34 is uninspiring for 186 yards, right? That's Deshaun Watson in Cleveland right now. But he looked in sync. He looked in rhythm. He looked comfortable. He looked like some semblance of Deshaun Watson, which I hadn't seen in Cleveland since probably early stages of last year, the Baltimore game where he led them to a comeback last year. Like, that's the only time I felt like he's actually looked like himself in Cleveland. So it was kind of good to see him in some sort of a rhythm. It still isn't good enough for what he's being paid and what they traded to go get him. But if he can play like this, it'll give them a chance on a weekly basis, right? They were able to establish some sort of run game, which is always helpful for Deshaun Watson because he can't do it by himself right now. Jerry Jeudy stepped up. It was good to see him do that. They still really haven't gotten Amari Cooper involved. 3 catches, 11 yards in this game. But you can see the gears are starting to turn there. And if they can figure it out, he can get into a little bit of rhythm. The Browns will end up being a solid team this year. It was a good win on the road in a like I said, a dreary, sleepy environment. They got it done. 18-13. They're now 1-1 on the season. Or the Browns. Jags are 0-2, and it doesn't look good. Titans hosting the Jets. This was an interesting game because the Titans, I'll be honest with you, the Titans defensively should be 2-0 this season. The defense has played fantastic football. Like, I've been impressed with the Titans defensively in the first 2 weeks of the season. And I didn't think I would be this impressed with them. But they've been extraordinary defensively. And you got to give, I think, what is it, Denard something. I don't know. It's the Patriots' former defensive backs coach. And I think he played for the Patriots too. And I don't know why I can't, or it might be something Denard. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now, but I know it's Denard. First or last name. He's got those boys playing, man. And you know what else I didn't realize? How many free agent acquisitions on the defensive side of the football they had brought in. That's a quality defense that they've put together, right? Between trading for the Chiefs corner, L'Jarius Sneed, and they added a linebacker that I didn't realize they had added. And I was like, oh, shit, that's where you at? And he's like, yeah, that's where I'm at. And I was like, well, okay. And that's a quality defense that they've quietly put together, right? They should have won this game. So new head coach Brian Callahan went off in the press game, post game, and he went off on the sidelines on second-year quarterback Will Levis. And if you watch the shit that Levis did, remember last week the Titans were up a touchdown late in the game. Will Levis is getting sacked, tries to throw it away, doesn't get it out of bounds. It gets picked off and run back for a touchdown. And ultimately, the Titans would lose that game by a touchdown, 24-17, I believe. At that time of the pick, it was 17-10. Titans were up. And so this week, they were up 7-0, and they're dominating the game. Rodgers, that Jets offense doesn't look right now. And I don't feel bad for them because they decided not to play Rodgers in the preseason because he was coming off the injury, whatever. Anybody that doesn't play their guys in the preseason and then you come out and you look like shit, I don't feel bad for you. Because that offense for the Jets, right now, it's Aaron Rodgers dumping it off to the running backs right now. That's what the offense consists of. This was not a clean performance by any stretch of the imagination by the Jets. Aaron Rodgers was 18 of 30 for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns. Does that sound like an Aaron Rodgers type game to you? Both of the touchdown receptions were to the running backs. So when I tell you the running backs right now are leading the way for this team, I'm telling you the running backs are leading the way for this team. Like their offense is not what you would call picturesque right now. However, they were down 7-0, were the Jets. And the Titans were inside the Jets' 15-yard line, going in for more points. If they could figure out a way into the end zone, it could be 14-0. And with the way the Jets are playing offense right now, 14 feels like 28 points for that Jets offense. It's a struggle for them right now. And Will Levis, much like the week before, is under duress. He's getting sacked, much like the week before. And much like the week before, he panics, right? This time, he sees a teammate behind him, and he tries to flick it to him, but he kind of like throws a dribbler over to him on the ground. It's still a fumble. It's a live ball because you threw it as a lateral behind you. So it's a fumble. And there's a Jet defender standing right by that running back. So as the Titan player is trying to pick the ball up, he gets hit, the ball's on the ground, and the Titans or the Jets recover. And the game was never the same after that. Like they kind of spiraled out of control, did the Titans, and not like they imploded and they lost the game by 3 scores, but they never recovered from that. They were up 7-0. They were dominating the game. They were going to be up 2 scores. If Will Levis does nothing and they end up settling for a field goal, they're up 10-0 and they're dominating the game. That fumble changed everything. The Titans never really regained their grasp on the game. The Jets settled in. The defense started to play well for the Jets. And ultimately, Aaron Rodgers made enough throws, and the young running backs made enough plays, and the Jets snuck out of Tennessee with the 24-17 victory. Will Levis has to be better, and his coach let him have it on the sidelines and after the game, and he did not hold back, and I don't blame him. Because they could be 2-0 right now. They probably should be 2-0 right now, should the Titans. Instead, they're 0-2, and your young quarterback is hurting you right now. So I know this much. The Jets better get their shit together because the Titans were moving the football on them. It wasn't like this clean defensive performance. And Rodgers in the offense, they don't look in sync right now. And again, it's early, right? But this is not what you expected when you signed up for Aaron Rodgers. So they got the win. That's all that matters is find a way to win. We'll figure out the rest of that shit later. And they did that. Another big surprise, maybe to some, or maybe not to some. Vikings take care of the San Francisco 49ers 23-17. And if you watch this game, I don't think this game felt like, to me, it never felt this close, even though it never was like a blowout. It was 20-7 at one point, but it never was like a true blowout, but it never felt like the 49ers was going to win this game, And I kept telling myself, oh, they're going to win the game. But very early on, I was like, oh, shit. Because Brock Purdy did that on the road at San Francisco thing that he does. Remember, they played them last year, and he threw like 3 interceptions. And he threw an early interception. I said, uh-oh. They went for it on 4th down and got batted at the line of scrimmage and incomplete. And then he threw a pick. I was like, uh-oh. They're not going to win this game, are they? And then when Justin Jefferson caught that 97-yard touchdown, I said, no, they're not going to win this game. They're not going to win this game. Jordan Mason did it again. He did it again. 20 carries, 100 yards. He continues to play well in the absence of Christian McCaffrey. Purdy wasn't terrible in this game. 28-36, 319, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but he was sacked 6 times. And it just never felt like he was totally comfortable. After the game, the NFL mics caught Brock Purdy telling Vikings defensive coordinator, oh, shucks. What is the name of the former Dolphins head coach? Brian Flores. B-Flow. Hey, man, your scheme is crazy. Mike's caught him telling him that. So clearly this Brian Flores just has a way with this Shanahan scheme is what it feels like. Deebo Samuel was playing well, but he got injured in this game. 8 catches, 110 yards. But the story here was the Vikings defensively. 6 sacks. They forced 3 fumbles. They recovered one of them. They picked off Brock Purdy once. And on the offensive side, Sam Darnold continues to be steady. Like, he's going to turn it over once, right? He did it in week 1. He did it here. But if he continues to throw 2 touchdown passes, 17 to 26, 268, if he continues to be very solid like this and make timely throws, he had a 4th down throw to Justin Jefferson last week for a touchdown. He had the 97-yard dime, 50-something yards, probably. I think he caught it at midfield. He was probably 4 yards deep in the end zone when he let that thing go. If he continues to throw those types of passes when they need it, look out. Remember, Sam Darnold was the number 3 overall pick in the draft for a reason now. So he can play ball. But you know what this is giving me the vibes of right now in Minnesota? This is feeling real Case Keenum-ish from, what was that, 28? No, it was 2016, right? This is feeling real Case Keenum-ish from 2016 or 2017, excuse me, because Kirk Cousins was signed the next year in 2018. So this is feeling real 2017-ish. It's early. It's 2 weeks. But Sam Darnold looks good, and that defense looks good. And when I think about that 2017 season, that defense was really good, and Case Keenum was really good. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. And if you're a 49ers fan, this was the worst possible outcome. You go in there, you hadn't won in Minnesota since 1992. You drop the game, right? You lose Deebo Samuel for at least the next 3 weeks with a lower extremity injury. I think it was a calf strain, but it could be something else. But he's out for at least the next 2 to 3 weeks, bare minimum. Christian McCaffrey was placed on IR prior to this game, so you won't see him for a month. You could be in some trouble. Again, Minnesota continues to be a house of horrors for you. And now all of a sudden you're dealing with Deebo Samuel being injured yet again, and there's no Christian McCaffrey to kind of pick up the slack. Even though Jordan Mason has been good, he's not, I repeat, not Christian McCaffrey. The 49ers are now 1-1. The Vikings are now 2-0. And if I'm not mistaken, they've got a trip to Houston, or do the Texans come to them? I think they're playing the Texans. Yes, they're hosting the Texans, a battle of 2-0 teams. That one should be fun in week number 3. Chargers, Panthers, I'll make this one short and sweet. The Chargers went in there and beat the Panthers up with the run game. J.K. Dobbins, 17 carries, 131 yards. A lot of that damage came in the first half, including a 43-yard touchdown run up the left sideline. Gus Edwards, 18 carries, 59 yards. The Chargers rushed for over 200 yards on 44 totes. This is Jim Harbaugh football at its finest, right? Like, they're not going to put the ball in harm's way. Justin Herbert's going to do just enough. 14 of 20 for 130 yards. These are pedestrian numbers. Like, we're used to Justin Herbert slinging the bitch 44 times, having to complete 32 of them for 383 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions for them to win. And now he's 14 of 20 for 130 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception, and they're winning comfortably 26-3. And last week they won 22-10, I think it was, over the Raiders. Like, this is who they are now. I told you he's going to come in and turn this shit around. It ain't going to be pretty. It ain't going to be sexy, but it's winning football. And on the Panthers side of things, it was a disaster. Bryce Young, 18 of 26 for 84 yards. I don't think I've ever seen a quarterback check it down to the running backs out of the backfield more times than I saw Bryce Young do it in this game. Let's see. You had Miles Sanders with 3 catches for 5 yards. Chuba Hubbard with 4 catches for 12 yards. Tommy Tremble is a tight end. He had 3 catches for 23 yards. Jatavion Sanders, another tight end, 2 catches for 8 yards. All of these were dump downs into the flats. All right. It was just like, oh, shit, not another one, But we'll talk more about Bryce Young, man, in garbage time. He's been benched. If you didn't hear the news, they're going to go in a different direction. I've got a lot of things to say on that, but it's unfortunate, the situation that Bryce Young finds himself in. It was a losing situation for him. He got drafted into the wrong organization. We'll talk more about that situation. But the Chargers are 2-0. And Quentin Johnston caught 2 touchdown passes, including the first one on J.C. Horn on a beautiful goal ball, and he went and got it. I said, oh, shit. QJ, look at you. Had another one where he was wide open in the end zone, miscommunication by the Panthers, and he caught it. So 2 touchdown passes, or receptions rather, for Quentin Johnston, he was Mr. Can't Get Right last year. Good for him. Good for him. As the Chargers roll 26-3 and are now 2-0 to start the season. Panthers obviously 0-2, and I don't think I'm saying anything that anybody doesn't already know. They're the worst team in football right now, but with this quarterback change, they're going to be a lot more competitive, but it doesn't solve anything, right? We'll talk more about that. Seahawks, Patriots. The Seahawks have, or the Patriots rather, have been one of the surprises of the first 2 weeks of the season. Like, they're 1-1, and they easily could be 2-0 right now, but the fact that we talked about them being the worst team in football going into the season, and them starting the way that they've started, pretty fascinating stuff as to how this has kind of transpired to this point. Seahawks win this game in overtime 23-20. This was a really good football game. This was fun to watch. This is a well-coached Patriots team. Gerard Mayo has these boys. He's very similar to Antonio Pierce from the standpoint of having these guys believe from an ex-linebacker who played in the league and knows what it's like through their lens. You can kind of, and the beauty of Gerard Mayo is he's been in that organization with those players, a lot of those players that are holdovers from when Belichick was there. He was there. So he knows those guys, and he knows what guys need to be paid, like a Ramondre Stevenson and things of that nature. And they took care of those guys. And you can tell that they believe. He's instilled confidence in them that they think they can go out and win football games. They're not the most talented team in the world, and yet they go out and they play with this sense of purpose, and you can see it. And if you're a Commanders fan, Antonio Gibson looks like a totally different player. And I'm not just talking about like on the field, body-wise, he looks to be in tremendous shape. I almost didn't recognize him. He's wearing the number 4. Maybe that single-digit number makes him look faster or so. He had 91 yards rushing in this game on just 10 carries, and he had this crazy run where he made a guy miss in the backfield on a play that looked like it was doomed for a 4-yard loss. He makes a guy miss, stops, cuts, spins, breaks through the first wave of defenders, gets outside, and hauls ass. And I'm like, who are you? He had a spin move on a dude. I'd never seen him do a spin move once in Washington. He had a spin move on a guy, left him in his wake. And it was like a gorgeous, perfectly timed spin move that you would see from a super agile back. He always looked fat and kind of disjointed and uncoordinated in Washington. Like, who is this guy? Who is this masked man? He looks like a different guy, right? He was spectacular in this game, was Antonio Gibson. 11 carries, 96 yards, including a 45-yarder for Antonio Gibson. He never had a 45-yard run in Washington. Maybe his rookie season, they had that little jet sweep they gave to him against the Ravens. Maybe. I don't know, but this was impressive stuff from him. Jacoby Brissett continues to be Jacoby Brissett, right? 15 of 27, 149 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. If that's not Jacoby Brissett numbers, I don't know what is. But the real story here are the Seahawks. And Geno Smith, man, his resurgence in Seattle has been remarkable. It's fun watching Geno play. You know, for some guys, the light bulb just comes on a little bit later. And Geno was one of those dudes because Geno was just playing good football, and it's confident football. 33 of 44, 327, 1 touchdown, no interception. The 1 touchdown was a dime. He was wide open to DK Metcalf for 56 yards and a touchdown. It was good to see DK get off in this game. 10 catches, 129 yards. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 12 catches, 117 yards. So, you got your big-time receivers stepping up, making plays. Tyler Lockett had a big 16-yard catch in overtime to put them in field goal range to knock home the game-winning field goal. They did enough defensively. Did the New England Patriots, or rather the Seattle Seahawks. It wasn't a pretty performance defensively, but they did just enough, got enough stops when they needed to give themselves a chance, because they were on the ropes in this game. Were the Seahawks, and they were able to stem the tide, find a way to knot this thing up at 20 apiece, send it to overtime, because they were trailing 20-17 in this game. Send it to OT, and they had to get a defensive stop. They did not win the toss. Got the stop in overtime, got the football, went down, and won the game. And so 2 tight contests to start for Seattle, but new Seattle Seahawks head coach Mike Macdonald, now 2-0 in his young career as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, in both tightly contested contests, but got it done here on the road. This felt like a trap game, and they almost fell in the trap, but they found a way to avoid it and get to 2-0 on the season. Saints, Cowboys, wow. This was probably, from a point standpoint, the second most surprising game. I think Rams getting blown out in the fashion that they did was the most surprising to me. They won by 31, did the Rams, or the Cardinals rather. And that game was never close. This one, the Saints had 35 points in the first half. They scored on every single one of their first half possessions. Here's a crazy stat for you. The Saints have scored on all 15 of the Derek Carr-led drives to start the season. They scored on 8 possessions in week 1 against the Carolina Panthers before he was taken out of that ball game. He scored on the first 7 possessions of this game versus the Cowboys before he was taken out of this game. Unbelievable. The Saints have scored 91 points over the first 2 weeks. They are cooking with fish grease right now on offense. And the story here is Alvin Kamara and Derek Carr. These two, and I don't want to forget Shaheed, the receiver, Shaheed, who right now is turning into the best deep ball receiver in the NFL right now. Rashid Shaheed had another crazy deep ball touchdown, 70-yarder on the first possession of the game. Derek Carr, 11 of 16, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Alvin Kamara, 20 carries, 115 yards, 3 touchdowns to go with 2 catches, 65 yards, and another touchdown. He was spectacular. He was the NFC Offensive Player of the Week, and rightfully so. They blitzed the Cowboys in the first half, and Dallas didn't know what hit them. The score was 35-16 at half. By the time they sat down, Derek Carr, was the final score, 44-19. Cowboys didn't know what happened to him. Before they could really figure out what was going on, they were down 35-13 in this game. And it was really off the strength of the Saints offense and the Cowboys lackluster defense. All this talk about Mike Zimmer being this and that after the week 1 performance against the Browns, who scored a whole 18 points in week 2 against Jacksonville's defense. I think people realize, oh shit, Dallas's defense sucks still, right? I shouldn't say still, because they didn't suck last year. They did suck in the playoff game against Green Bay, but Dallas had not lost a home regular season game in like 19 games, something crazy like that. Well, that streak's over. I mean, they got their asses whooped in epic fashion. And the Saints, I sat here on this podcast and I talked to 3 teams in particular: the Saints, the Vikings, and who was the last team? The Bucs. And I challenged all 3 of them, and all 3 of them won on Sunday. Not only, I asked all 3, I said, look, you don't have to win the game. Just go be competitive. Told the Lions or the Bucs, just go be competitive in Detroit. I said, of the 3 teams, I trust you the most, Tampa. Wouldn't be shocked if you went in there and won. The other two, I don't expect you to win. Just be competitive. I don't expect the Saints to go to Dallas and win. Just be competitive. They said, "Oh, you had the wrong team. Talk to us nice. All right, talk to us nicely. Okay, you know who we are? We're the Saints. Talk to us nicely, or we might put 40 on your head next. Well, you got me. All right." And the Vikings said, "Hey, we haven't lost to the 49ers since 92 at home. What are you talking about? We're fine. We're good over here." So this Saints team right now, and they did all of this without Marshawn Lattimore at cornerback. They held him out of this game, and they held the Cowboys to 19 points. I think what's been most impressive is not only are they dominating teams, and I get it, it was Carolina in week 1, but this is Dallas in this game here, right? What's been most impressive is their defense. Their offense is crazy right now, and nobody saw it coming, but they're not winning shootouts. They're blowing teams out because their defense is getting their football back the ball after they score so that they can score again. You know, who knows what their offense would be doing if they had to withstand a 6-minute drive by the other team's offense as they cooled the hell off on the sidelines. No, they're scoring a touchdown. Their defense is creating a turnover, or they're getting a 3 and out, or they're giving up 1 first down, and they're getting them back the ball, and they say, "Hey, go do it again." And they're like, "Bet." This has been fantastic to watch. And I really feel like the Cowboys are reaping what they sow, because they spent zero resources essentially on the running back position, and they just thought they were okay. 21 carries, 68 yards. Rico Dowdle, 7 carries, 30 yards. Zeke Elliott, 6 carries, 16 yards. They thought they were okay at running back for whatever reason. And I don't know how fast they can get Dalvin Cook up to speed, but he's better than any of these bums that they have in the game right now. So, and he's, 66 years old in his damn self. So, I don't really know if he's going to change anything, but it's better than the shit that they're trotting out on the field right now. That arrogance is biting them in the ass right now. But they don't have a lot at receiver other than CeeDee Lamb. I mean, Jalen Tolbert had a 39-yard catch in this game, but he doesn't scare anybody. It's going to be interesting to watch these Cowboys. They got the Ravens at home, the 0-2 Ravens, and that's an interesting game. The loser of that game is in big, big trouble. Ravens dropped to 0-3. They are probably cooked at that point. And if the Cowboys drop to 1-2, they're not done. They're not, cooked or anything, but they're in trouble, right? If they drop to 1-2, Bucks, Lions, this was a fun one. This was a great game. I got to start with Aiden Hutchinson having 5 sacks. I mean, this guy, he had 3 sacks in the first quarter, right? Like, oh man, he was fun to watch in this game. But Baker Mayfield is just on another level. He's on a new level. He's on a new level. He's on a new level right now. Is Baker Mayfield. Like, I ain't see this shit coming. I ain't even gonna front. I ain't gonna hold you. I talked about this before the season started. It's been the every other year thing with Baker Mayfield, right? Every other year he plays good football. And he played really well last year, earned himself a 3-year contract in Tampa. And I was like, good for him. But he's probably going to come crashing back down to earth. And he lost his offensive coordinator. Dave Canales ended up being the head coach in Carolina. So I was like, that's not good. But they did a really good job of going and getting him a guy that was familiar with this game. The offensive coordinator from the Rams. And he's come in and, man, they haven't missed a beat. And Bake is so confident right now. He's running around. You would have thought he was back at Oklahoma. He's running around, making that touchdown run at the end to kind of put him ahead. That was vintage Baker Mayfield, right? The throw up the sideline to Godwin, who had a monster game here. Godwin was 6 catches, 107 catches, 117 yards. And that touchdown, that 41-yard touchdown up the sideline. Baker 12-yard touchdown run was electric. 12 of 19, 185 yards. It wasn't like this crazy performance like he had in week 1 where he could do no wrong. 8 for 185 yards, a touchdown and an interception, but And he was sacked 5 times. I told you Aiden Hutchinson had 5 sacks. But he managed the hell out of the game. He made plays when they needed to be made. And he's doing all of this without the aid of a true run game. We know the Bucs really don't have a successful run game. And so they got it done there. The defense, I was really surprised at how well they played with all the injuries that they have defensively. The Bucs went in there. I told you something's off. Something's amiss with this Lions offense right now. They didn't look right in week 1. I feel like Jared Goff is morphing back in. Remember, Jared Goff's good enough for us. He's starting to look like the Jared Goff that got run out of LA. Like I feel like the new car smell is wearing off of Jared Goff now. And I'm like, hey, you might want to take him to the shop. You know, when you first get a new car, you don't need to take it for maintenance at the beginning. Shit is all new. The brakes work. The tires are great. It smells great inside. Everything works the way it's supposed to. But, the more you drive it, the more wear and tear that it takes. All of a sudden now it needs a little bit of work. And it's starting to feel like Jared Goff, that new car smell is wearing off, and he might need a trip to the shop. 34 of 55 for 307. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions, right? Had a bad interception last week that almost lost him the game. And it was good to see Amon-Ra St. Brown, which we knew he was going to bounce back after having 3 catches for 13 yards last week. 11 catches on 18 targets for 119 yards. You knew they were going to force feed him the football. And it was good to see Jameson Williams, J-Mo, still getting off. He had a 50-yard catch in this game. But Jared Goff is struggling. And, he threw another bad interception in the red zone like he did the week prior. He also had a throw at the end of the game where you're like, bro, what the F is that? You need a touchdown. How are you going to throw it to the, 8-yard line? Like, what is that going to get you? I'm putting this loss, though, on Dan Campbell. This one goes on Dan Campbell because at the end of the first half, the Lions had a chance to get a field goal. And I think the score at that time of the game was 13-6, I think it was at halftime, if I'm not mistaken. So they had a chance to kick a field goal before half. They'd gotten in the field goal range, and Jared Goff threw a completion, and they had enough time to spike the ball. It was 8 seconds left. Goff got the offense up on the ball, and they were going to spike it. And so they spiked the ball, and Dan Campbell has this blunder, and he sends the field goal unit running onto the field as Jared Goff is spiking the football. And so they've got like 30 guys on the field through the Lions. And so, of course, they get called for a penalty, too many men on the field, and that comes with the 10-second runoff. The Lions don't have any timeouts. It was 8 seconds left, 10-second runoff, end of the first half. You don't get any points there. You lose the game by 4. The last possession of the game, their last snap came from the Bucs 22-yard line, maybe. So you're in field goal range, chip shot field goal range. Had you gotten a field goal before half, which they were in, again, I don't want to call it chip shot field goal range. It's probably been like a 40-yard field goal. But that's a very makeable field goal. You make that field goal. I think they might even been closer than that. You make that field goal. You don't need a touchdown at the end. You just need a field goal, right? It changes everything. It might have changed the way Tampa would have approached things too, but it doesn't matter. They would have been in a better position to win this game. I'm putting this one in the lap of Dan Campbell. And he owned it, right? At halftime, he said, that was my fault. I blew it. He's a stand-up guy. You expect him to own his shit, and he did. And I'm going to put this one in his lap. But Jared Goff, he looked like the Jared Goff that I was afraid of last year, right? And he kind of won me over as that season wore on. He's looking like the Jared Goff that I kind of expected to show his head last year at some point. But man, what about the Bucs? 2-0. Gritty performance on the road there, getting it done. I'm interested to see who they've got next, because I know they got Philadelphia in 2 weeks. They got the Broncos at home. They're going to win that game. And then they got the Eagles at home the following week. So the Bucs get off to a 4-0 start, man. They've been very impressive. How about Colts and Packers? This one will be quick. 16-10, Packers get the win. get their first win of the season after losing over in Brazil to the Philadelphia Eagles. Colts dropped to 0-2 with the loss. This was an interesting game because there was no Jordan Love in this game. And so Malik Willis, who they traded for a week before the season started, had to start at quarterback. I got to give credit to Matt LaFleur for this game plan. This shit was phenomenal. Okay. Effing phenomenal game plan here. Like, when we talk about babysitting a quarterback, putting in a game plan that's going to give him the best chance to win, this is what the hell I'm talking about right here. If you watch this shit, you like, man, this shit was beautiful. First of all, hats off to both of these offensive minds in this game, Matt LaFleur and Shane Steichen. I saw some of the cutest, most creative run formations and shit I've never seen before. And I've watched a lot of football, guys. It's not often you show me some shit that I've never seen before. I felt like I was watching college football. I ain't even going to front on the NFL field. They did a handoff where they got a guy coming in jet motion, which was the Jaden Reed in jet motion and out of the gun. And he fakes it to him, spins all the way around, and then hands it. So it's almost like a counter, but it's a fake jet sweep counter handoff where the quarterback like spins all the way around the clock and fakes it this way, spins all the way around, and then hands it to the running back. And you got counter motion going by the time he hands it off. And man, Josh Jacobs earned his money in this game because they could not stop him. He had a bad fumble. This would have been a blowout if he didn't fumble at the 1 yard line. I was telling my dad, I said, boss, I haven't seen this many fumbles at the 1 yard line to start an NFL season in my life. Jacobs had a fumble at the 1. We saw the Bengals fumble at the 1 last week against New England. We saw Travis Etienne fumble at the 1 in week 1 against the Dolphins. Somebody else fumbled at the 1, which prompted me to bring it up to him on Sunday. Not this one. This wasn't the fumble at the 1 that I brought up to him. Somebody else fumbled at the 1. But I've never seen this many fumbles. And, you know, if Jacobs doesn't fumble there, they're going to win this game going away. He was dominant in this game. It was Josh Jacobs. And they needed him to be, obviously, with no Jordan Love. 32 carries, 151 yards for Josh Jacobs. But the real story here was Malik Willis. Man, this is as comfortable as he's. And sometimes, you know, with these quarterbacks, there's a lot of pressure on them where they're drafted. And they just need a fresh start. Somewhere where they're not known, where they're not going to have these unrealistic expectations. 12 of 14 for 122 yards and a touchdown. And when I tell you he looked to be in command of the offense and he tucked it and ran when he needed to run, if he didn't like what he saw, he said, I'm not going to stand back here and take sacks. I'm not going to put the ball in harm's way. He managed the shit out of this game. And this was some really well-executed, coached-up shit by Matt LaFleur. Like, hats off. Damn, this shit was perfectly executed, right? And again, they would have scored another touchdown had Josh Jacobs not fumbled at the 1. Meanwhile, if you're Indianapolis, you finally get the Jonathan Taylor from 2 years ago that was the Russian champ, you know, or 3 years ago that was the Russian champ. You finally get him back. 12 carries, 103 yards. He was playing that kind of football that we know he's capable of. And Anthony Richardson just wet the bed again, right? And I told you he's going to be an enigma, right? 117 of 34. So I told you when the season's done, I said he's going to be in the 50s in completion percentage. I told you guys that. He might mess around and be in the 40s. I kid. He's going to be in the 50s. That's not okay for an NFL quarterback. Now, because he's essentially a rookie, because he only played in 4 games last year, I believe, you're going to cut him a little bit of slack. We're going, for all intents and purposes, we're going to call this year his rookie season. And you're allowed to be in the 50s as a rookie, you know, if that's where you are in your maturation process. But 17 of 34, which is 50%, for 204, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Now, granted, the last interception came on, you know, a pseudo Hail Mary attempt at the end of the game. But the 2 interceptions were god awful and can't happen. And the, they took turns, doing things to lose this game. Adonai Mitchell dropped a wide open 3rd down pass that would have been a 1st down. As I mentioned, Richardson had 2 errant passes that were picked off that can't happen. They just didn't make enough plays to win a game on the road against a quarterback that they knew all too well, who was in their division that they had seen before. And maybe, I don't know if they've seen him or not. I don't know if Malik Willis, I know he started against the Texans a couple of times. I don't know if he ever started against the Titans, but or the Colts rather, but this was a game you needed to win if you're Indianapolis. You're not 0-2. And this was there for the taking. It really was. And you hate the fact that you couldn't stop the run well enough to force Malik Willis to have to beat you. And you allowed him to be comfortable, to make the throws that he was comfortable with making. You allowed him to use his legs. You allowed Josh Jacobs to control the game with 32 carries. You allowed them to play the kind of game that they wanted to play to take pressure off of Malik Willis, who just got there 3 weeks ago. And that sucks if you're the Indianapolis Colts. They're now 0-2 and hell of a game plan, and the Packers are now 1-1. Rams, Cardinals. This was an ass kicking of epic proportions. Now, I already told you guys, I sat here in this chair before the season started, and I told you Kyler Murray is on a mission, and that's a well-coached Cardinals football team. We saw it last year when they didn't have the talent, when they didn't have the quarterbacks, and they were in ball games against teams that were clearly better than them with chances to win. And if they had better quarterback play, they would have won a lot of those games. I said, look out for the Arizona Cardinals this year. And then they go into week 1, and they're up 17-3 on the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Now, they didn't hold on to that game because they don't know how to win those types of games yet. That'll come with time. But I said, this Cardinals team is no joke. And people still didn't listen to me. And I told you they were going to win this game. Now, did I think they were going to win 41-10? Did I think they were going to be up 24-3 at halftime? No. Did I think it was going to be 14-0 on 2 Kyler Murray to Marvin Harrison Jr. bombs in the first quarter? No. But I thought they were going to win the game. And Kyler Murray, man, he's special. When he is locked in and at his best, he's a ton to do. Like, my Commanders play them in 2 weeks. I'm not looking forward to that shit. Watching him do the things he did. We can't tackle Baker Mayfield or Daniel Jones. I know we're not going to be able to tackle Kyler Murray. If you watch the shit he was doing in this game, he was doing that little toddler shit where he runs around like a toddler, faking dudes out, extending plays for 8 seconds, and then throwing touchdown passes. I mean, the shit is ridiculous. Really, it is. The third touchdown pass of the half that he had to the Higgins guy in the back of the end zone, where he runs around for like 6-7 seconds, extends, and then as he's backpedaling, throws a dart shot to the back of the end zone in perfect placement. Like, what are you supposed to do with that? He had to throw to Marvin Harrison for probably like 40 yards up the sideline, where he'll lose 3 rushers. As he's falling backwards out of bounds, he throws it to Harrison, who's standing by the sidelines 40 yards down the field, and throws it to him and drops it to him. He's just like, bro, what am I supposed to do with that? I can't defend that. I don't care how athletically gifted you are on defense. If you don't keep him in the pocket, which is hard to do, he's gonna hurt you. He's gonna hurt you. And you know they can run the ball with James Conner, 21 carries, 122 yards. Kyler Murray was 17-21 for 266, 3 touchdowns, 4 catches, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Marvin Harrison Jr. On the first 2 possessions of the game, Marvin Harrison Jr. had 3 catches, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This was after a week where Kyler Murray said, it's not my job to get him the football. like force him the football essentially. Oh man, this was an ass kicking. And Dennis Gardeck, I love Dennis Gardeck. I loved him like 4 or 5 years ago. Before he tore his ACL, I was like, yo, Dennis Gardeck is a problem as an edge rusher. 4 years later, Dennis Gardeck is still wreaking havoc. I think he had 2 sacks in this game, 3 sacks in this game for Dennis Gardeck. Like this guy, man, I love me some Dennis Gardeck. I love the rushers that kind of come out of nowhere that people don't talk about, that you weren't looking for, and all of a sudden they turn into prolific pass rushers. He's one of those dudes. Dennis Gardeck is a problem. And you know who else is a problem? Budda Baker. God, he's a good football player. There was a throw down by the goal line. Matthew Stafford thought they had a touchdown to the running back, and Budda Baker comes and lights the dude up. They go for it on 4th down before the half, and they don't get it, right? They thought they had a pass interference. The ball was uncatchable, and they get no points before half. Could have kicked the field goal, but they were down 24-3. I don't blame Sean McVay for going for a touchdown there. Like, you weren't going to win this game with field goals. You were going to Washington Commanders the Cardinals to death in this game. You were already down 24-3. You needed a touchdown. So Budda Baker's really good. That Cardinals team, I think they got a chance to be good this season. They're now 1-1. And the Rams, shit went from bad to worse. You were already without Puka Nacua in this game. Then you find out that your other star wide receiver, Cooper Kupp, injured himself in this game. Probably going to be out for a little while. So things went from bad to worse. You're now 0-2. Your 2 best receivers are out. You got nowhere to turn. And it doesn't get any better for you. And you play in a tough division, right? Who are we kidding? The Seahawks are 2-0. The 49ers are 1-1. They're pissed off. And now the Cardinals are 1-1. And they just beat the brakes off of you. It's not a good situation if you're the Rams. This looks like this thing could spiral out of control on them this season. But we will see. Steelers, Broncos. I'll make this one short and sweet. I already talked about the struggles of rookie quarterback Bo Nix, who was 20 of 35 for 246 and 2 interceptions in this game. Again, those numbers aren't terrible. Much better than the numbers he posted in week 1, but the 2 interceptions, one of them was at the end of the game when they tried to make something happen. The first one was a bad one, though, in the end zone. Can't happen. You know, in a game like this where you see you might be able to field goal the Steelers to death and win this thing 15-13, you can't throw an interception there, right? It was a bad one, too. You're like almost to where you're like, what were you? I need you to explain to me what you were seeing there and why you did what you just did, because that play had no chance, right? I think they need to use his legs a little bit more, but the defense played well for the Broncos, man. Like they deserve better. Justin Fields, 13 of 20, 117 yards and a touchdown. Not sexy numbers. Added 8 carries for 27 yards. Now, a lot of big plays. He had a throw down the sidelines to George Pickens. It was one of those you had to be there to see it, to understand how good of a throw this was. It was the best throw Justin Fields had made in his career. And I'd venture to say college, NFL, all of that stuff. This shit was a dime up the sideline with a defender draped all over George Pickens on the move. And you go, wow. And it was negated. And he had about 4 or 5 big plays in this game negated by penalties. So the numbers don't look great. But if you take away those penalties, his numbers look a lot better. He played well in this game. And again, the numbers don't bear that out. He had a back shoulder fade touchdown that he threw, the only touchdown of the game the Steelers had. The only touchdown in the game scored by either team to Darnell Washington. Thing of beauty from Justin Fields, man. Like, I think he should be their starting quarterback. I really do. Ben Roethlisberger agrees with me. He said, if I were the Steelers, I wouldn't remove him from the lineup. I think Mike Tomlin's going to do the veteran, Mike Tomlin, I want to make sure I give my guy a fighting chance thing and give Russ a chance. I'd tell you, hey, Russ, be the best cheerleader you can be, bro. Because I'm going to tell you, Justin Fields is the right man for the job, because what he brings that Russell Wilson doesn't bring is the ability to make something happen when the play breaks down and it's not there. Like if it's 3rd and 7, Justin Fields can go get you 8. Russell Wilson ain't doing that. If it's not there with a check down or somewhere then he's gonna throw it away or you're gonna have to punt. But you're not getting the first down. And some of these throws, by the way, that Justin Fields is making, Russell Wilson ain't making. Right? I don't know. I don't think Tomlin is gonna do it. I think he's gonna when Russ is ready to go, I think he's gonna give him a shot. I wouldn't disrupt it right now. It's working. He's not turning the ball over. He looks in command of the offense. He looks in control. I leave him out there, but that's a really interesting decision that Tomlin has to make when Russell Wilson's healthy. He can hide behind it right now, but it's only so much more time he's going to have before Russ is like, all right, I'm good. I'm ready to go. Doctors are like, yeah, he's ready. You can keep like, no, we want to make sure you're fully healthy, bro. We don't want no setback. Like you can bleed this as long as you want, but at some point, Russ shows up every week, fully dressed, eye black on, like he's going out there and he knows he's not playing, right? I'm like, Russ, what you doing, bro? You're not playing today. But you can't tell Russ nothing, right? So I'm like, yeah, you're gonna have to break it to him. Hey, bro. Yeah, he kind of playing good right now. That defense is humming for the Steelers. Between Alex Smith and TJ Watt and Patrick Queen and Minka Fitzpatrick and Joey Porter Jr. and the corner they traded for from the Panthers and all of that shit. DeMonte KZ and fill in the blanks, and they're playing good ball, man. Like that defense is balling right now. It's just tough. And the Broncos never got them out of them playing like close to the line of scrimmage because they weren't pushing the ball down the field. So that's another one of those Mike Tomlin wins. When he ends up 9-8, 10-7 at the end of the season and they make the playoffs, you know why, right? Because in his first game of the season, they won without a touchdown with 5 field goals or whatever it was. And then in his second game, they won with 1 touchdown by holding the opponent to 6 points while they scored 13. The Saints scored more points in the first half of their game against Dallas than the Steelers have all season long to this point. And they're still 2-0. So they're playing old school football. Run the ball. Don't turn it over. Sound defense. Don't beat ourselves, except they do have penalties that are negating some big plays offensively. But they're getting it done. Lastly, Chiefs. Bengals. What a game. What a finish. Chiefs get it done 26-25. Moved to 2-0. Meanwhile, the Bengals dropped to 0-2. And they have no one to blame for this 0-2 start but themselves. Came out of the gate sluggish, lackluster performance at home against the Patriots. And then, they were going to get riled up. They were going to get it revved up for the Chiefs. They always do. They were in a position to win. And they had a player, number 33. I don't know this guy. I think his name is Anthony. Let me check him. Tell you who he is right now. Damn, he ain't make a tackle. He ain't got no stats. But he had 2 big ass penalties in this game. That's for damn sure. One negated an interception early in the game that the Bengals had. And then he had a penalty at the end, which was the one that everybody's going to remember, a pass interference penalty that on a 4th and 16 extended the drive in the game for the Chiefs. And then they went down and got the 51-yard Harrison Butker field goal. They know how to play Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes was picked off twice in this game. This was statistically, this was one of Patrick Mahomes' worst games of his career. 18 to 25, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Again, a third interception was thrown but negated due to a penalty, hands to the face penalty at that. Um, Isaiah Pacheco ran for 90 yards, had a good game, but they found out after the game he's going to be out with a broken fibula for, I don't know, probably 6 weeks or so. Um, that's a big blow because they were already very thin at running back with this Carson Steele guy who's like a fullback playing running back. He had a fumble in this game as well. So did Joe Burrow. We'll get to that in a second. Rashid Rice had a big catch, 44-yard touchdown catch. They really limited Xavier Worthy in this game, didn't have any big splash plays there. Um, uh, the Chiefs just made enough plays, right? They did that Chiefs thing where they just find a way to win. They make the plays at the end that are winning plays. People always, oh, the officials helped them, this, that, and the third. But they always put themselves in a position to win the game, right? Joe Burrow was his typical Joe Burrow self against the Chiefs. 23 of 36, 258, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, but he had a back-breaking fumble that was scooped up and scored by the Chiefs. If that play doesn't happen, I think the Bengals win this game because they defensively had Mahomes flummoxed in this game. And that fumble, they were up by 6, I think, at the time of that fumble. Let me see what the score was at the time of that fumble. They were up 5, 22 to 17 at the time of that fumble. And they really had the Chiefs like bottled up offensively at that point. The Chiefs didn't score any more points offensively the rest of the game when they were down 22 to 17. They literally had the Shamari Connor scoop and score, 38-yard touchdown, and they had the Harrison Butker field goal after the pass interference penalty. So the Chiefs were struggling, and they had penalties too. There was a big Travis Kelce catch and run that was negated due to a penalty, and Rashid Rice converted the initial 4th and 6 that would have kept the game alive. He converted it, and that there was a penalty there, and that's how they got to 4th and 16. So they had their share of mistakes too, but ultimately the defense was dominating and Joe Burrow was doing his thing, but that fumble was soul crushing. Something else to watch with Cincinnati, they don't have a real run game right now. So that's something else to keep in mind, but they'll get back more likely than not T. Higgins this week. It'll change their offense dynamically. Jermaine Burton, good sighting from him. He had a catch, a 47-yard catch. He's still learning the offense, but he's going to be a problem when he figures it out. Mike Gesicki had a big game. He did have a drop in this game that would have been a first down, but he was big in this game. He had a catch and run, a 37-yard that set up a early score by Cincinnati. So, and then Andre Yoshivas, he had a couple of big catches. He only had 2 catches in the game, and they both were touchdowns. So Yoshivas was really huge in this game from a pass catch. You know who else I like? Eric All Jr., the tight end that we heard a lot about from Iowa that was injured. And, Iowa knows how to churn out tight ends. They look like they just stole one. They look like they might have stole one in Eric All because he was injured, but he's a super duper athlete. We know Iowa churns out athletically gifted tight ends. Eric All looks to be legit. So a soul crushing loss for Cincinnati. Now they're 0-2, but they've been here before. If it's one team that I don't worry about at 0-2, because this is what they do, it's Cincinnati, right? And so I expect them to bounce back and be right in the mix when it's all said and done. For the Chiefs, it's 2-0, but this one felt like it came at a cost. You lose Pacheco, and while you had 2 big wins against AFC North teams to start, life is gonna be tough without Isaiah Pacheco. I really feel that way. So we'll see what the Chiefs are able to do. But they get the win. And they're now 2-0, and the Bengals are now 0-2. So That's Slate Skatin, taking that trip around the National Football League in week number 2. And now, before we go to garbage time, got some comments from you out there that we're going to knock down, and then we'll get to garbage time afterwards. Rishi, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Rishi writes, oops. Call me crazy, but if our O or D defense clicks, we got a shot. Absolutely. I'm not going to call you crazy because I believe that. But it can't be or. They both need to click. I got no doubts that the offense is going to get better. It's really the defense that I'm concerned about, right? We're going to talk about that a little bit later on the show. Not this show, but on the Commanders Nightly News show later on tonight. Door Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Door Gunner writes, Jalen Carter, the best defensive tackle. Still the best defensive tackle. Asking for a friend. He's still good. He's still talented. But it's a lot easier to be talented and play well when there's talent around you. It's a lot harder when there's not as much talent around. But dogs make plays no matter what, right? So I think he's still good. I never thought he was the best, but they did, right? So obviously that is what you're referring to. So we'll see. We'll see what he ends up doing. I think he's a really talented. He's a head case though. That's the thing I worry about. Is he had issues at Georgia, he's had issues in the NFL, and you can see on the field sometimes he's not always in the right headspace. So that's what I worry about more so than anything else with him. But the Black Al B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Black Al B writes, "What it do, Lou?" In my Jason Tatum voice. I don't even know what that means. What they gonna say now, right? Oh, that's what you were saying in your Jason Tatum voice. Okay, now it makes sense. What they gonna say now? Skull. Let me ask you this, Black Al B. You didn't think this shit was gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, you feeling good right now. You didn't think this shit was gonna happen. You didn't think you were gonna be this nice this year. Don't try that shit. Don't try it. I know you better than that. You thought y'all was gonna be ass this year, but he said 3-0 incoming. Good win for your boys too. Hashtag 7 field goals can get you into first place. Who knew? 7 field goals can get you a slice of first place. Who knew? I am utterly shocked at what your boys have been able to do. I didn't think you were going to beat the Giants, but I'm not shocked that you beat the Giants. But I knew your track record with the 49ers and how you guys have owned them at home, but I still didn't think that mattered. Wow. To see the way Sam Darnold is playing, and more importantly, the way your defense has been playing this year. You can take that defense anywhere with Sam Darnold playing the way he's playing right now, and you can beat anybody. So, Texans coming to your place. That's a fun one. 3-0, you think you're going to get CJ Stroud, huh? All right. That's going to be a good one. That'll be on my television screen this weekend for sure. And my boys don't play till Monday, so I'm locked in on Sunday. I am absolutely locked in on Sunday. Congrats to your boys on the 2-0 start, though, for sure. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy. C-Matt, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Chris, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise. 3 questions. 1, with Tua's latest concussion, how close do you think he is to retiring and why? 2, which team is more desperate to win this week, the Ravens or the Bengals, and why? And 3, who makes the NFL Hall of Fame this year? I think Tua's for the first time in his life, he's considering it. I don't think he's going to retire. But the past concussions, it was never a thought for him I need to hang it up. He never thought about walking away from the game. Now, with this insurance policy that we heard about, which is $46 million or something like that he has, that if he, can't continue to play the game because of it, he can collect on. That probably makes him feel a lot better after signing that big contract. And now that you're another concussion in, I think it is something that he's actively discussing now for the first time. I don't think he's going to retire, though. He just loves it too much. And a lot of these dudes, this is all they've been doing since they were kids. So it's hard to walk away. Which team is more desperate to win, the Ravens or the Bengals? The Ravens without question. Ravens without, because the Bengals have been here before. This is what they do every year. This is what people don't understand. The Bengals do this every year, so they're comfortable in their 0-2 skin. They're comfortable. They got no issues peeling all 4 straight here. And you look up, and they're the hottest team in football, and they're 4-2, and nobody wants to play the Bengals, right? That could be the reality a month from now. The Ravens, they're not used to being here. This is not comfortable waters for them. They're panicking right now. Outwardly, they're trying to put off this perception, oh, we're good, we're fine, this, that, and the third. But this is not where they're accustomed to being. This is not who they are. They dropped to 0-3, and the sky is falling in Baltimore. This is not what they're accustomed to. Even in years where Lamar gets hurt, and he usually doesn't get hurt early in the season, right? They're not, since Lamar Jackson's come on the scene, they're not accustomed to starting seasons slow. This is not what they do. I can't even tell you the last time that John Harbaugh started the season 0-2. I can't even tell you the last time that happened. So for him to start 0-3, I can't tell you the last time the man was under 500 by 2 games, let alone 0-2 to start a season. Without question, this is a desperation week for the Ravens. Both teams need to win, but the Ravens need to win more. And the Ravens are on the road. At least the Bengals are at home and will be heavily favored, I would think, at home. I would think the Ravens would be favored on the road, but they could be dogs on the road at Dallas. People could see this as a bounce back game for the Cowboys. It's the Ravens without question. And then who makes the Hall of Fame? I don't know who's actually eligible, Chris. I'd have to look. I know I saw a couple of names like Tony Romo, and there was some other quarterback that was pretty prominent that was probably going to get in. Tony Romo's not a Hall of Fame quarterback, is he? Like, this is the shit I'm talking about. We just letting dudes in because eventually he's probably going to get in because he's Tony Romo. And I'm like, seriously, dude? He shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. If Antonio Gates isn't in the Hall of Fame in his first time, then there's no way. Tony Romo shouldn't even make it to the finalist ballot. Watch what happens. I bet you he makes it to the finalist, though. If everything's right with the world, he won't. Because he shouldn't get in. He's not a Hall of Fame quarterback. We were having a discussion about Matt Ryan and whether he should get in or not. Well, Matt Ryan's been a league MVP and he's played in a Super Bowl. What has Tony Romo ever done other than Skechers commercials? Unbelievable. But this is the society and the world we live in. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Fat American writes, bro, are people actually complaining about Cliff's offense? Yes, there are people out there actually complaining about Cliff's offense 2 weeks in, and he's been spectacular. You know, look, the red zone wasn't great on Sunday. We'll all admit that, but there were circumstances that helped the red zone offense be lousy on Sunday. But yep, there are people complaining about Cliff's offense. Why? Because people want something to complain about. If you're not scoring 50 points a week, then there's something wrong with the offense, right? People need to remember last year. I think that people get too caught up in being prisoners of the moment, right? There's no proper perspective. Last year should have brought a greater appreciation for what you're watching right now. There should be a level of gratitude that comes with what happened last year and now being free from that bondage this year. But people don't know how to be grateful. They just want to complain. That's what people do best. Fat American says, I love what he's doing with the offense, and we're establishing an identity. How about that? Hey, how about that? Over 200 yards rushing on Sunday. Hey, how about that? I know. But hey, you ain't hear that from me, though. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, Fat American writes. And another thing I'd like to point out. Maybe I'm alone, but I'm excited about JD5. You're not alone. You know you're not alone, Fat American. He's composed and he's smart. Been impressed with his situational awareness, doing checks and audibles week 2. Remember, he had a check in his first ever preseason game, his first possession on the deep ball to De'Ami Brown. So he's a guy that they talked about being sharp, mentally engaged and ready to go pretty much right out of the packaging, and we're seeing that 2 weeks into the season already. So I'm very excited. You're not alone. A lot of people are excited about JD5, and he's playing really well right now, Fat American. Fat American, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Fat American writes, I say alone because ain't nobody else talking about those aspects of his game. That's what really excites me about him. Talent, etc., is just a bonus. There are people talking about it, but there are other things that are a little bit louder right now that drowns out the stuff that you're talking about. But those are important aspects of his game. And if you go on social media and the people that know ball, that's the part of the game that they're talking about. They're not talking about his legs or any of that. They're talking about his ability to go through progressions, get to the right receiver. You can see his head going through 1, 2, 3, getting to the starting front side and getting backside like he did on the Noah Brown throw. And you see people like Dan Orlovsky and Brian Baldinger who break this down and do it for a living, talking about how impressed they've been with him to start. So, yeah, there are people out there talking about that same thing you're talking about, Fat American. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy, C-Mac. Double up. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou, 2 questions. 1, who do you see winning the Heisman Trophy this season? C. Ward, Jalen Milroe, or Dart, or someone else, and why? Which NFL, and 3, which NFL coach, or 2, which NFL coach do you see being fired first this season, and why? Heisman is hard because that thing changes from week to week. All it takes is one bad performance, and you could go from first to third in the Heisman Trophy voting. Right now, like Milroe is not in the conversation for me because he's not good, and Alabama's going to lose at some point because he's not good. But yeah, he had a big game the other day. He ain't played nobody yet, right? Ward is interesting at what he's doing at Miami, but can he sustain that, right? Dart is interesting because he's in the SEC. They're lighting it up, and they're going to play some teams. Just like Milroe's going to play some teams. And he's going to have to prove that he's legit. And if Dart can keep it up, they got one of the most dynamic offenses of this Ole Miss right now in college football. Same thing with Tennessee, and they got Oklahoma this week. Oklahoma is getting their coronation in the SEC this weekend. And that's a hell of a way to have your SEC cherry popped with Tennessee and the way they're playing football right now. So I don't know. It's just a hard question to answer right now because so many guys that are playing well, but we're 2 games in, right? And nobody's really played anybody yet. So come back and ask me that question about a month from now, and I'll have a real understanding of who I think is what and what I think teams are going to be and all of that good stuff. So, I mean, I watched Cam Ward play against Ball State this week. I mean, come on, right? I mean, he played Florida. They stink, right? Florida stinks. And Ball State, man, I mean, how am I supposed to gauge how good you really are, right? So we'll find out more about him. Jalen Milroe running up the score against some bum school last week where he had like 4 touchdowns or something he accounted for. Like, yeah, that's cool. Run me them numbers when you start playing some real schools. Run me them numbers. So we'll see. Same thing with Dart, right? They ain't playing nobody. They beating the brakes off of these teams. At least Tennessee played NC State, right? So, and Tennessee has Oklahoma this week. So we'll have a better gauge. Their quarterback's playing really well too, right? And the receiver for Arizona is playing out of his mind as well. So it's a lot of dudes that's in the mix right now. It's just early. And which coach do I see being fired first this season? Wow, that's a great question because it could be a number of guys. Right now, I'll tell you this, it doesn't feel like anybody's seat is immediately hot. Like, it didn't feel like going into the season, yo, if he loses his first 5 games, he can get fired. I don't think there was any coaches like that this year. I could be wrong, and I could be not thinking about somebody, but here's what I'll tell you. If the Eagles shit goes off the rails, I could see Nick Sirianni. This is a guy that almost got fired last offseason, but it didn't feel like coming into the season like he was in danger or anything like that. I mean, I don't really feel like Robert Saleh, I think, had the best odds in season of getting, like, he's not getting fired in season, right? When you think about it, like, just go around the league and think about all the coaches and think about which situation feels like one in which a coach could be fired. You first of all, in order to get fired, your season has to go off the rails. But unless you have an impulsive owner, generally, if you just got there or, you still had, like in the case of a Brian Daboll, I still think they want to see him what he can do with a quarterback. So I don't see him getting fired until he gets a guy, and if it doesn't work, then he might get fired. And I think that's kind of bass backwards, because if you let him pick a quarterback, excuse me, and the shit doesn't work, now you're stuck with that quarterback without the coach that wanted him. So, but that's how things usually go. As far as coach, like let's just go through the league real quick. Let's do it. Let's just take a spin around the block. NFC East, none of those coaches are getting fired in season, right? All right. NFC North, Packers aren't firing their coach. Lions aren't firing their coach. Vikings aren't firing their coach. And the Packers, Vikings, Lions, Bears aren't. That'd be the one, right? And I don't even see them firing. It doesn't make sense to fire him in season, right? We'll see them firing. Like if it went off the rails, that defense is playing ball though, right? If they continue to play ball on defense and the offense isn't getting it done, he might get fired after the season, but not during the season. But he's the one in that division, right? Uh, NFC West. Rams aren't firing McVay. The Seahawks just hired their coach. They're 2-0, but they're not firing him even if the season went off the rails this year. 49ers aren't firing Shanahan, and you're not going to see anything happen with Jonathan Gannon in Arizona. And in the NFC South, the Panthers are volatile. Anything could happen. They're not going to fire Dave Canales. At least I don't think. I didn't think they were going to fire Frank Reich 11 games in. So who's to say what the hell's going to happen there? But I don't see him getting fired. They're not going to. The Falcons aren't firing Raheem Morris. The Bucks aren't firing Todd Bowles, and the Saints aren't firing Dennis Allen. So you go to the AFC. Same thing can be said about the AFC East. I don't see anything happening with Robert Saleh during the season. Woody Johnson generally doesn't fire coaches in season. I don't see anything happening with the Bills in season. I don't see anything happening with the Patriots. Obviously, they just hired Gerard Mayo. He's not going anywhere. And nothing's happening with Mike McDaniel in Miami. AFC South, the Jags are looking real shaky, right? They're 0-2. They're not firing Doug Peterson. They could start 0-6. I don't think they're firing Doug Peterson. But anything could happen. I'd put him on the list. Colts aren't firing Shane Steichen. The Titans aren't firing. They just hired Brian Callahan. They're not firing him no matter what. And the Houston Texans aren't firing DeMeco Ryans. AFC North. That's as ironclad as it gets in terms of divisions, in terms of their coaches. Nobody's in danger there. Ravens aren't getting rid of Harbaugh. The Steelers aren't getting rid of Tomlin. The Bengals aren't going to get rid of their head coach, Zach Taylor, and the Browns aren't getting rid of Kevin Stefanski. He's won Coach of the Year twice in 3 years, okay? Or 4 years, I believe. He's not going anywhere. And in the AFC West, Chiefs aren't getting rid of Reed. Raiders aren't getting rid of Pierce. I tell you what, man, nothing good has happened since Sean Payton has arrived. all bad in Denver. They're not going to fire him during the season. And the Chargers are definitely not getting rid of Jim Harbaugh. So when you go around the league, it's only like 2 or 3 coaches that are even remotely close or even in danger. Bears head coach, Jags head coach, Doug Peterson, Bears head coach, Matt Eberflus are the only 2. And then, Carolina is just unpredictable. I don't see them firing their coach. Those 2, Eberflus in Chicago, Peterson in Jacksonville, if this shit continues, they feel like the only, and maybe, I doubt it, because the Bengals, they don't do that. But Zach Taylor, if that somehow their season went off the rails. Those 2, though, are the only ones. I don't see anybody. But if I had to pick one, I'd say Eberflus in Chicago. That's what I would say. But I could see Peterson if they continue to struggle, but I just don't see anybody getting fired this season, if that makes any sense. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for the being a member of the MOBB who writes, LT, I'll have to be up to this year's QB draft class to break my theory of you were, and we ran with it. We did a podcast episode talking about it of when quarterbacks go 1 and 2, one of those guys generally doesn't pan out. That's your theory. He said in the same year dictates that at least one won't make it. You had that. We did an episode on it. I'm not speaking that into existence, but as long as our guy is the one that does make it, I'm fine. But I'm not putting that on Caleb, right now. So we'll see what happens. But going back to last year, that it kind of feels like it's ringing true, right? With the benching of Bryce Young right now. So I hear you loud and clear, man. GT7, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. GT, thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, hey, Lou, what's good? Nice all 22 walkthrough minus the comments. Joking. Anyway, I mean, there was some spirited debates in there, and I know my guy E, he felt like he was trying to argue just for the sake of arguing. I wasn't going to argue with him. Like, if that's how he feels, that's cool. I believe Coleman's techniques are related to him getting used to the NFL speed, and I have faith he'll get better. Give the young bull some time. I'm just telling you that's what the technique looked like in college. It'd be one thing if it looked like something different in college and now it's looking a little different in the NFL. That's what it was in college. So why am I to believe that it's going to change at the NFL level? That's what I'm saying to you. He's got to show me different for me to feel different. I haven't seen different. Same shit he was doing in college, he's doing right now. So till he shows me different, I'm only going to go off of what I've seen. But I hope he turns out to be really good. I'm rooting for him. Anybody that knows me knows that. GT7, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Lou, I'm also loving these vets and the new additions on offense. Ertz, Eckler, badass. Ertz week 2 mic'd up is good stuff. Check it out. I didn't know they had released the Ertz mic'd up. So yeah, I definitely will check that out. You're spot on about and Wagner, add him to that mix too. These veterans have been magnificent this year. They are exactly what the doctor ordered for a team that was extremely young and lacked guidance and leadership last year. Adding these veterans has been a godsend. It really has been. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. Repentandlive.com. Stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show repentandlive.com some love. Welcome them with open arms. Repentandlive.com. Welcome to the squad. All right. Let's get to our final segment of the show in garbage time. So, Bryce Young was benched in Carolina. And my guy Sindeko he's waiting for my 00 because of Bryce Young. Look, I was a big Bryce Young supporter when he was coming out. I thought he was the better of the 2 options in terms of quarterbacks, or at least the one that I would have taken. And CJ Stroud started to change my mind in that Georgia game, but it was it was kind of like too little, too late. But I was like, man, he showed me some things in that Georgia game that I did not know he could do. And it made me feel a little bit different about CJ Stroud, but it was a small sample size. I was like, was that just a one-off? Or is this who he can be full-time in the NFL? If you would have told me then that he could be that all the time, then I'm like, he's the better of the two options. But, Bryce Young had played in the SEC, and I watched him in some tough environments find a way to get it done. And he'd always been the guy. High school, college, he'd always been the guy. And so I thought, this is a mentally tough kid. He goes about it the right way. Yeah, he's undersized, but he can play. And it takes a special environment to foster a guy like Bryce Young because, yes, there are deficiencies. Doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. We knew that coming out of the draft. Not the most incredible athlete, but he can move. Small guy, all right, size-wise. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a quarterback have to jump to throw over linemen consistently, like out into the flats and things of that nature, like I've watched Bryce Young have to do. So he's tiny, man. He's a small guy, right? But you knew that when you drafted him. And so I think that they've done a grave disservice to him in Carolina. And while Panthers fans will swear up and down, this guy stinks, he can't do it, he's too small, doesn't have a strong enough arm, physically he can't do it, I disagree. I disagree vehemently. Mentally, is he locked in right now? No. The man's confidence is on the floor right now. They've beaten him up, and this benching is beyond me. And I have my thoughts on this benching. So I told you have the worst owner in sports, and your organization is in the toilet, and it's going to stay there for a very long time. I feel bad for Panthers fans. We've done this already. I don't need to go down that road again. I'll just say this. How is it that your coach, after the game, declares immediately, Bryce Young's still my starting quarterback? He then goes home, comes back the next day, addresses the media, and starts the press conference by saying, I went home, I watched the film, and we've decided to make a change at quarterback. Then the next question that was asked of him is, did the owner have a say-so in this conversation, and did he have any input? And he said, I would like to keep that conversation private. Translation. The owner told you, I'm sick of losing, bench his ass, and put Andy Dalton in the game. This is the shit. This is why the Panthers will never, ever win anything as long as David Tepper is their owner, because he's too emotional and he's too involved. This is the same guy that poured his drink or a cup of ice or whatever the hell he still had in his cup on a fan because he was pissed off because they was losing again. And that fan was talking shit to him. Same guy that went into a restaurant that continues to post shit on their little, billboard outside of their restaurant. And these are funny signs, by the way. The latest one was CJ Stroud 2-0. I think it was Stroud 2-0. No, it was Darnold 2-0, Mayfield 2-0, Matt Rule, the former Panthers head coach, 2-0 at Nebraska, and it said Young 0-2 or something like that. So essentially, or it might have said Panthers 0-2 or something like that. But essentially, he was saying all of the people that were here are being successful elsewhere, but somehow the common denominator remains, we still suck. You know why? We know why. And this is the latest in a saga that is going to be never ending for Panthers fans. If you think for 1 second that David Tepper didn't have anything to do with this decision, then you are either blind, naive. I'm not going to call anybody stupid. You're either blind, naive, or you just don't want to see. All right? You just don't want to believe that this is happening. It's a sad state of affairs. You can't bench a second-year quarterback in week 2. Look, it's bad, man. I watched it. It's bad. I get it. It's bad. I know it's bad. Sometimes it's bad. I mean, it's bad. I get it. And I saw the body language of guys like Adam Thielen during the game as another drive ended with this guy checking it down for a 3-yard gain on 3rd and 11. I know. I get it. I saw the interception. It was a bad interception. I get it. This is the issue. They aren't putting him in positions to succeed. I just talked about how people are complaining about how many wide receiver screens and things of that nature that are being thrown here in Washington for Jaden Daniels. I don't give a shit. I want you to make my quarterback comfortable. And I'm not telling you that they're not running. They run. I thought Chuba Hubbard had a really good game, and he ran the football and he gave them a fighting chance early. But off of that, there should be some action that you're supposed to be able to get to that makes it easy. And they try to go boots and things of that nature, get easy throws. Nobody's falling for that shit. But you can throw wide receiver screens. You can throw slants. These are things I don't see them doing with Bryce Young. I don't see the slants. I don't see the wide receiver screens. I see drop backs where he's got to read the defense and try to push it down the field vertically, and he's not ready for that. And when you draft a guy, when you trade the capital that the Panthers traded, when you trade away DJ Moore and a future first-round pick to get this guy on your team, you do whatever it takes to make him comfortable. And however long it takes to get him comfortable, that's how long it takes. It'd be one thing if it were like Robert Griffin III when the Shanahans came in, they traded all those picks to get him, and he had that season. And then after that, things went off the rails, and 2013 was a nightmare. They brought in Jay Gruden, and he went through that season, and he was like, bro, he sucks, and he's got a bad attitude. Then that's a little bit different. But we're talking about year 2 of Bryce Young. We're talking about a full season of NFL starts. He just hit, I think, 17 starts. If that many, might be 15 starts in his career. And we're benching him already? I don't see an offense that's set up. First of all, you gave that man no opportunity for success last year. He got into the worst situation a quarterback could possibly end up in. Turmoil and dysfunction within the organization. Head coaches fired. He had 6 different offensive play callers last year. No talent other than Adam Thielen at the receiver position last season. Offensive line was in shambles. It was a damn shit show last year. And that's the environment you're supposed to develop a number 1 overall pick in? Then you try to stabilize the situation. You throw a bunch of money at it. This is that Dan Snyder shit that you got. You throw a bunch of money at it, sign all these offensive linemen, overpay these guys. Offensive line still stinks. You go out, you draft a receiver, you sign another one or trade for one in free agency and Deontay Johnson. You try to give him weapons now. You go out, get an offensive-minded head coach, right? But you still aren't taking care of the young quarterback with play calls that are going to allow. You're not dealing with Baker Mayfield. You think you're just going to come in here and you're going to run a standard NFL offense and you're just going to be able to run your stuff? You cater your offense to Bryce Young's skill set. I haven't seen one read option where he keeps the football or any RPOs or anything like that that's supposed to be easy throws for him. A lot of this, they're just in the gun. He's dropped back in the gun, right? And he's supposed to just read it out. They run it on first down. They run it on second down. If Chuba doesn't get 6 on first down and 2 on second down and make it, then you're in 3rd and 8. How many times are y'all going to be in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 13 with defenses just sitting back saying, I dare you. And now he's got to check it down. You don't want him to make a mistake, so he checks it down. Can't run it on first down, run it on second down and say, bail me out on 3rd down. That's losing football. They're not doing him any favors. And then you bench him in week 2? You can't go back to him now? Sure, Andy Dalton's going to give you a better shot to win. But are you giving up on Bryce Young? Yes or no? Because that's what this means. If you're going to bench him in week 2, that means you're done with him. If you're done with him, my buddy's a Raiders fan. He's like, yo, I'll take him if you don't want him. His value has plummeted. I'll trade you a 4th-round pick for him if you don't want him. Because the Raiders, you don't think Antonio Pierce won't take that kid, bring him in, build him back up, and instill him with confidence and send him back out there, and I bet you he'll play good football. I guarantee you Bryce Young will play good football. You ship him off to the Vegas Raiders, who need a quarterback. And let him get in that system. Let Antonio Pierce get in his ear, build him back up, show him what he was in college. Say, hey, this is what we're going to do for you. I guarantee you, they send that young fella out there. I guarantee you he'll be a good quarterback in this league. That's a shit organization right now. It is. And I don't give a shit who you bring in there. You got to bring some kind of transcendent talent to overcome the bullshit that's in that building right now. It's all bad. It's all bad. And sure, Andy Dalton will go in there. They'll play better this week versus the Raiders, right? And Andy will give them a shot to win. What does that do for you? What does that do? You're not winning shit with Andy Dalton. The primary goal of this season was to figure out, and if you figure that out in 2 weeks, that Bryce Young can't do it, fine. Be done with him. Move on from him. Get something for him. It's tough because it's a lot of money. That's the number 1 overall pick that you're moving on from in year 2. We're not even into year 2. We 2 games into year 2, and this in year 1 was as dysfunctional. The only number 1 overall pick that had a more dysfunctional situation was Trevor Lawrence with Urban Meyer in year 1. That's the only quarterback that I've seen in a worse situation than what Bryce Young inherited in Carolina. Are there limitations to his game? Yeah. You got to work around that. You knew that when you drafted him. That's not a surprise. You didn't just wake up today and find out, oh shit, Bryce Young's 5'9", 5'10". You didn't just wake up and figure that out. You didn't wake up and figure out that Bryce Young doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. You found that out when you were going through the process to draft this young man coming out of Alabama. You knew that already. These aren't surprises. Work around that shit. If you were comfortable enough drafting him number 1 overall, trading up to get him, knowing all of these things, then you need to find a way to work around that stuff. This shit is crazy to me that he's getting benched. Now, I was talking to my buddy, and I said, this is the thing that you do have to keep in mind if you're looking at it, because you got to play devil's advocate. You can't just look at it from Bryce Young's perspective. He's been awful. I can't deny that. You got to look at it from both sides. There is a fiduciary responsibility that the head coach has to the other 52 guys in that locker room. They deserve a chance to be competitive on a week in, week out basis. Right? Like, one guy can't drag the entire team down week in and week out and give us no chance. Well, what am I showing up to work every day for? If I know the end result is we're going to get our brains bashed in, our quarterback's going to throw for less than 100 yards, and we're not going to be able to move the football and even be competitive in the game. Well, why are we doing all this work during the week then, if that's the outcome? Let me ask you another question, too, while I'm at it, because that's the other side of the argument. And I get that, too. I'm no dummy, and I'm not blind to that. I understand how that works. You'll lose the team. You'll lose the locker room if you keep putting this kid out there and he can't do it, and they see that he can't do it. What am I doing then? What are we doing? Why am I even showing up to work? So I get that. Here's another question. Why didn't this man play in the preseason? If this shit looks like this shit looks like this, why he ain't playing the preseason? I asked this question a month ago. What are we doing? Are we hiding something right now? Why is this man not playing in the preseason? Is he that nice? Do you feel that good about him, or do you feel that bad about him? Either way, he should have been playing in the mother effing preseason. This is the shit I'm talking about. This organization has handled this situation the absolute worst way you can handle a situation. They've mangled this situation 6 ways to Sunday. He should have been playing as much football as he could have played leading up to the season. And this is the product they roll out. And now it's all Bryce Young's fault. No reps in the preseason. Like they got it like that. This is what I'm talking about. But it's Bryce Young's fault. It ain't all on Bryce Young. And I'm not telling you he's innocent in all of this. But boy, have they really mismanaged this situation. And it's a goddamn shame. It really, truly is. I just hope that there's a chance for him to salvage his NFL career elsewhere. Because clearly it ain't going to happen in Carolina. It ain't going to happen in Carolina. Let's get out of here. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. I got a super chat here. Let me knock this one out before we get out of here. This is from my guy, Sindeko. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Sindeko writes, I'm so disappointed in you, Lou. Two things can be true at the same time. Yes, it was a tough situation, but the film doesn't lie. The mechanics don't lie. They gave him everything he needed this year. You want to, a wise man once said, you want it to be one way. And this is when you say, Sindeko, what? And this is when I say, you want it to be one way. And you go, stop saying that. And I go, but it's the other way. You want it to be one way. You can't try to minimize the organization's role in this shit and then turn around out of the other side of your mouth and say that they gave him everything he needed this year. That's false. You can't tell me that they gave him everything he needed. You know what he needed more than anything else this year? Reps. That's what he needed more than anything else. They didn't give him any in the preseason. You can't tell me they gave him everything he needed. This offensive line ain't great. Still ain't a good unit. They gave him more weapons. That's great. The play calling has not been great this season. And they have not Bryce Young can run. He can run. He can move. He's no slouch. They don't use his legs at all in this offense other than bootlegs. This is not Baker Mayfield that you're dealing with here. Your head coach is not utilizing your quarterback to the best of his abilities. You take the things that Bryce Young is good at and you do that. And they're not doing that. He's taking his offense and he's forcing it on Bryce Young. I don't see the easy throws. I don't see the easy completions. I don't see them putting him in advantageous, very, makeable third downs. The offense is very predictable. Run on first down, run on second down. And yes, part of that is because they're trying to hide Bryce Young. But again, too many third and longs, and he's got to check it down. Sindeko, excuse me. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. More coddling and misinformation. PFF has our line ranked top 5 this year in pass blocking. I watch the games, and I don't care what PFF says. You should know that. You know better than to bring PFF stats here and act like I'm finna respect those or honor those on my channel. I don't even know why you even wasted your breath or your keystrokes with that shit. Okay. Wide receivers running wide open. He is just not ready for any team. He's not done, but don't deceive the public. If it's not, he's not just it. What if he's not just it? And he may not be it, but that wasn't a good situation for him. And the reason he's missing wide open receivers is because his confidence is in the toilet. All of this shit has to be factored in. He was beaten up mentally by this organization last year, right? Then you come in this year, and I heard nothing but good things this entire offseason about the strides that this man is making, this, that, and the third, all of these things that he's doing, all the things that they're doing. And I listened to your head coach talk about, all of the things that they saw wrong with his mechanics last year. And here's what we're doing this year to correct those things. And I'm like, you know what? This sounds great. I can't wait to see it in the preseason. Then we didn't. Then you thought you were just going to surprise people and roll it out in week 1. Surprise, we got y'all. He needed reps is what he needed. You got to build up his confidence. His confidence is in the toilet, man. Look, some of y'all, I don't know if you've ever played sports before, and I don't like to play that game. I just know. I was an athlete my entire life, And I can tell you the most important thing an athlete can have is confidence. If that shit starts to wane, waver, or flicker at all, you're in trouble. Bryce Young, I can look in his eyes and tell that man has zero confidence right now. He ain't seeing the field well. He's making the same mistakes he was making. That same interception he threw in week 2 against the Chargers is the same interception he threw in week 1 last year's rookie season first start against the Falcons. Same interception. Ain't shit changed. I'm not telling you that this man is out here playing excellent football. But what I'm telling you is there are things that could have been done better to handle this situation. And there are things that could currently be done to put him in a better situation to succeed. And they're not doing that either. He's not playing well. I'm not here to make any excuses for him. That's the thing is you want it to be one way. You want me to just trash Bryce Young and not blame the organization for their wrongdoing and their part in this. They have more to do with this than he does. That's what I'm telling you. I'm not telling you that it's 90-10 organization to Bryce. What I'm telling you is it's probably 70-30, 60-40 organization to Bryce in terms of this. This ain't 50-50. This ain't down, or it ain't 80-20 Bryce Young fault to the organization fault. There's a lot fundamentally wrong with what's going on here. And whether you got receivers running open or PFF says your offensive line is top 5, all of that bullshit. What I'm telling you is the bottom line, they're not putting him in a position. He should have been playing in the preseason. There should be more quick passes to get the ball out of his hands. He holds the ball way too long, takes dumb sacks. Sam Howell did the same shit last year. That was on the coordinator. All these long developing routes down the field and all of that shit, get it out of his damn hands. Get it out of his hands. Let the playmakers touch it. Don't wait till it's 3rd and 12 to throw a wide receiver screen that the defense is sitting on now. Right? Don't wait until 3rd and 13 and try to drop him back, or 3rd and 8, try to drop him back, and now he's got to check it down. Because they don't respect him going down the field. No, he's not playing well, but they put him in a position to be playing poorly right now. You think 2 games is good enough for them to give him all of this talent, all of these offensive linemen? When they left him out to dry last year, had him 15 different offensive play callers last year, turmoil within the building, backstabbing, all kinds of shit going on, and it's supposed to be magically fixed in 2 games? No preseason work, by the way. It's supposed to be magically fixed? Come on, Sindeko. You know better than that, man. Come on, man. Really? I can't. I want to see him go somewhere else. That's what it ultimately. And again, watch. The Panthers will play better. It's Andy Dalton. He's a veteran. He's going to play well. They're going to have a shot. They're just not good. And they didn't have a shot with Bryce Young at quarterback. And so I get the move from that perspective, but he's a young kid, and it's hard to go back to him after you bench him in the second game of his second season when the first season was a wash. So I'm really, really disappointed in how this situation has been handled by the Panthers. But it is what it is at this point. Ain't no going back. Decisions have been made. Now let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I hope they can get something for him and let him reset. They reset. And my thing was, if he's not the guy, right? And I know this is hard to stomach 2 games into a season. Just let him bottom out this year. You stink, and then you go back to the well this year in the draft. Because if you play Andy Dalton, you're gonna win some games. You're gonna end up with the 8th pick in the draft. What good does that do you? Right? I don't really. I get it. It's hard to sell people on that 2 weeks in, but he's looked bad, man. I tell you, the first two games of the season been rough. And I get why they're doing what they're doing. I don't love it, but I understand it. I do understand why they're doing what they're doing. So anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on this installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow. We'll be back for another episode of the podcast during the day. If you're a Commanders fan, I know it's late, but circumstances have dictated that my day be like this. So I'm going straight into the Commanders nightly news probably in the next 5 minutes or so. And we'll be there live until that episode is done. But if you can't catch it tonight, catch it on playback, right? Anyway, I digress. You guys have a great night. Take care. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless and good night.